Hello, welcome back to the JRB podcast with myself, Ryan Levine, joined here by Jeff Jones and Bohdan Demnick. So today we're going to
Hello.
be talking about the YCS that just happened, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about maybe outside the scope of what we usually do, which is usually about like cards, and we're going to talk more about I think like the brand and the branding pretty specifically associated with like the 25th anniversary and the products coming out. But before we get into that, we do have the name of the winner of the giveaway from episode 24, which this person's already received. It like we shipped it out a little while ago. So, Jeff, you have that name just so we can.
Yeah, the winner was Casey Barbie. Congratulations! I did send that out immediately, so
Yeah,
they have already got it. We just forgot to announce who the winner was.
we
So
did. So by the time we recorded episode 25, they may have already had it in their hands, and we just didn't say it. Anyways, so yeah, that that
and
is
their
that.
favorite card was tour guide, the
Ooh,
QCR tour guide.
yeah,
So
I like that one actually. I pulled one of
Ooh.
those in the couple of boxes I opened. It looked very nice. Um, so the YCS. I actually don't really know what the breakdown was. I did know
I
the only
have
thing
all the
that we
breakdowns.
perfect. The only thing
Yeah,
that we really talked about last time about it with our predictions was you said you think it would be pretty likely Fire Kings would get some tops, and I believe that happened. Right, a couple Fire Kings
Yeah.
did top. I think. I think it was
yes.
like two or three, maybe.
In the I believe it was three.
Yeah.
It's in the other category for the. Oh no, it's not. That's for the day one breakdown. So the day one breakdown, there it was considered in the other category.
Hmm.
We'll do day one breakdown. We have. I was pretty surprised by this. The most played deck with only 12% was both Unchained and Rescue Ace as a tie.
Each one was
Uh,
12%.
each one was
Okay.
12%, and that was the highest number out of all played
Yeah, that
decks,
is crazy.
12%. That is very, very small.
I feel like it would. Yeah, that's lower than I would expect.
The second most played deck, or third, I guess, if you're after those are tied for first, is Tier Elements at 10%, Labyrinth with 7%, Pearly with 7%, and Bestial, this says, with 4%.
Which
And
is
then,
wild to me that they just labeled a deck bestial. What literally
yeah,
whatever that means. You
the
know?
I
other
think
percent was
I think they don't
48%.
categorize it as Dragon Link, right? Unless that is just a percentage, and I'm talking out my ass. Like I genuinely think
They just
they
call it
look at
Bestial
these.
instead of
Yeah.
Dragon Link.
They've
I
Well,
wouldn't
definitely
call it.
called it.
I guess they also pocket it with like there's the Bestial Horus deck, and then now you'll have the Bestial Runic deck,
Yeah.
and some of these decks won't play the rocket cards, and then when they do play the rocket cards, it'll be 2 to 3. Now it's like 3 copies of Tracer usually, and it'll only be like 5, 6-ish rocket cards, right? So like why differentiate it from Dragon
Mhm.
Link to anything else? It'll be more Bestial cards at the end of it. So
That's
I think
probably true actually.
Bestial is
Yeah.
fine.
I guess you're
Bestial is
right.
hilarious to read on a breakdown. I'll give them
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Uh,
So if we go into the breakdown of top 64, we have a huge conversion rate for a Rescue Ace and a very low conversion rate for Unchained. So Rescue Ace took 22% of the top 64, followed by Tearlaments with 16%, followed by Labyrinth with 14%, Unchained with 9%, Centurion with 6%, Fire King with 6%, Pearly with 6%, and then 21% other. That 6% again is like a very small. It's like 3 decks or something like that. So there were like 3 Fire King decks, um, and yeah, the Unchained conversion rate for 9% after being tied for first place with the most played deck, then being the fourth most played deck in top 64 is pretty surprising, but in some ways not. It's weird because I think Tearlaments has a very good matchup against Unchained.
mm.
Um, and so with Unchained being more heavily played, if people playing the Unchained deck probably will have way more unfavorable matchups. On top of the fact that if you're siding for Tearlaments, a lot of those cards also do really well against Unchained, like DD Crow and Bestials and stuff like that. Um,
So you've played Unchained. You've played Tier and Unchained in events this format, right? Am I
yeah, I have,
wrong?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you because I've only played Rescue Ace, but I know that you've played both of them. So you think from your experience that Unchained is in your opinion a good good matchup for Tier?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I
It
think
That
tier
it's it
is
can make
favored
Dweller.
into Unchained.
oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
it
that's
can definitely
fair.
make Abyss
Yeah.
Dweller. That is, yeah, and it is a deck that does it. I don't want to say the most efficiently, but it can do it,
No, I think you're
more
right. I
frequently.
think you're right. That
Yeah,
tier is probably the deck that
yeah,
can make rank 4s because like Rescue Ace can, but like it's
You have to go out of
you have
your
to go
way.
out of your way. Yeah, like
yeah.
It doesn't happen
tier,
You
naturally,
yeah.
also
right?
you throw into like hand traps as well, because
Yeah.
that's just like what they've accounted for, right? Like we've seen Unchain siding copies of D Shifter and stuff like main decking copies of
You
Nibiru.
have to
Uh,
use Dimensional Shifter in
mm,
Unchained side deck because Tier Elements is
Is
so
so
bad
yeah,
of a
yeah, that's
matchup.
a good
Like,
point. Yeah. I definitely have had that
the
conversation with people in the past and I just don't think
yeah.
I don't think I like processed it, but you're definitely right, yeah.
So from my limited playing experience, IRL, like post, Cancun sort of metagaming, I just had Unchained is the only deck I have made. Even I think even going first against tier, because your end board is so like it's efficient, but it's not particularly oppressive. And I think the tier cards can be pretty well positioned into your end board with how you set it up, right? I've had instances where my opponent just cold activates Foolish to send a Miller, and now my entire board is just invalidated, and that's depressing. Like
yeah.
I think it's generally just very very awkward with how like decent some of the tier cards are positioned into Unchained before we even get into like Abyss Dweller and stuff like that. So, but Abyss Dweller is a big one for sure. Losing
I
the
mean,
role.
even a lot of
Yep.
times, just like activate, scream, normal summon,
Mm.
Rhino Hearts,
Yeah,
There's a
and like
lot.
that's also
it's
annoying, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's like
You have
pretty
the
good.
random option for like chain blocking, like making a fusion under Caesar, and like you might have a field spell up, you might have like all of these other variables, and I think it's very likely that sometimes tier can just outgas you when you are going for the efficient thing. You need a lot of like non-engine, and I think we've maybe discussed this on the podcast before, but Jeff and I love saying this where it's like you look at your hand. You might have two normal summons in a deck like Unchained, or you might have these hand traps, or you might have the Requiem, and maybe you pair that with like a Dark Contract in hand. Your opening hand is now like 4 cards, 3 cards essentially. And if you resolve combo, like sure, you're getting all these like other cards coming, but they're not like real +1s, and especially not into like the tier matchup itself. So I just think it's inherently a bad matchup, especially with how you have to approach the format with a deck like Unchained when the format is so broad. There's a bunch of hand traps, and some of them aren't well positioned into tier. You're really just taking a gamble, and I don't I don't like tier in a format like this. I think it's so swingy.
I mean,
uh,
I don't like tier and I don't know. So actually, one thing we can talk about at the very end is like we can give a little bit about like the events are over, right? There are no more events until Phantom Nightmare. We're
Yes.
probably
yeah,
we were maybe going to get a ban list before. Like I think we probably should get a ban
Oh,
list before
oh,
Costa Rica,
I,
but
I want to.
we
So
can talk about that
Japan's
later.
next forbidden list is is the 24th, the day before Christmas. I think it'd be really cool if Konami also gave
Did a
us a
Christmas
Christmas
ban
ban
list?
list.
Oh, that would be
Yeah.
hilarious. All right, well, let's talk about that at the end then. That's really fun. Yeah. So
I was gonna say there's also like there's weird layers with like Konami EU and USA where they go on their Christmas break,
Hmm.
and they go on that break quite early. I think it's like within this maybe last week, right? It would have been this week maybe. So sometimes I think stuff like that is unlikely, but again we have
we got
seen
one last year. When was their outer
yeah,
summer ban list
that's what I
last
mean. We've
year?
seen it like they have it laying in wait. It's queued up, ready to go on the website to shock everyone.
I'm
As a
gonna
holiday treat.
I'm
So
gonna check what day it went up last year.
So while you
Oh, it went
check
up
that,
December 1st. Or
oh,
they
okay.
yeah, never mind. Or they released this is what I'm thinking about, right? Yeah, the one that banned Curious and Mystic Mind, that was a December 1st ban list. It was released in the last week of November, it looks like. So not that so that situation won't happen again. But that is I didn't know that the Japanese list that's an odd I guess they just reveal it a week before January 1st, and that's when it goes into effect, I guess. But probably,
Maybe.
right?
If they don't do something like that for us, they could do like a Happy New Year ban list. They could do
Yeah,
like
yeah.
January 1st or something like.
Yeah, but that would be fun. I agree. Yeah, but where we were talking
Something
about
I want
Unchained
to
and Tier, yeah. Continue.
Unchained tier. Yeah, I don't think it's a good matchup. And if more people are playing tier elements, it's really difficult
Yeah.
to win. But also, I think for something really, I think it was surprising because I think it's not favored into Unchained. Is the upswing of Labyrinth, and this is a
Sure.
deck that I with Unchained do fairly well against. I don't think it's, again, extremely favored. If anything, it's probably 55-45. But this new, like, hyper version with all of the furniture cards and like 3 copies of the Arius, the butler, and stuff like that. Something I learned at the last YCS I played at was actually how fucking annoying Arius is and how it triggers in basically every situation. And I severely underrated that card going in.
That
Like
that
I
deck now is just putting so many bodies on the field that instead of like
yes.
the base level of like what Labyrinth would do before is like it could put bodies on the field. It could present lethal like quite easily, right? Like Sicking and
Because they're
Ariana.
all just like 3,000 attack. Like
No, no,
all
no,
of
no,
them.
but
They're
like
all just
no, no, but
huge.
that deck has these very alarming if you play on your opponent's turn 1 and have a hand trap to like sort of stop them, you do have a way
You
to
have
set up
a lot on your turn,
9k
yeah.
9k on your crackback, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like ridiculous, like it's like swing 3k, flip big, bounce lady back, proc Ariana, special back the lady and attack, swing 3k again. Like you can just do 10,000 out of nowhere, you know. And like people just neglect that. Like this deck has a lot of reach, and they just look at it as like a control deck with some like FTK elements, you know. Eradicator. It's like no, this deck just kills you.
It reminds me, I
It
mean,
plays
it
bunch
kind of
hand
reminds
traps,
me
summons
of
big guys.
kind of reminds me of just like how Eldritch could just like Golden Lord just 3,500, Sanguine just summons a guy and you just get attacked for 7,000. You're like, what happened?
Yeah, and
The downside, obviously, with
yeah, then you
Eldritch,
overlay for like the guy who burns you for 2,000.
yeah, and you're just like,
Yeah.
okay. You know, you're just like, where did all my life go? Why are all their monsters 5,000 attack? Like, what's happening? And that's, I think, like, that's where we've kind of like turned the corner on like these trap decks, right? Where like in the past, our trap decks were these weird like trap trick, you know, like the hand artifact trap trick decks, and like maybe even like alter guys, where like for the most part, all their guys are like tiny, and you're not just dying to 2 monsters, right? And now we see all the trap decks are just like
a lot more setup, right? Compared to where we're at now.
Yeah.
Maybe Eldritch fits the role of like a lot more setup as well. Like Eldritch felt a little bit more controlly, but like obviously when it snowballs, like alter guys, you do present a good chunk of damage on board, and you clock your opponent, and you know the traps sort of like help you get to that game state. I think Lab is like the next level comparatively, right? Because all of these cards, they're very efficient. They keep cycling. They keep doing everything.
Yeah. Also, what they've done though with Labyrinth is they've effectively turned a trap deck into a deck that uses traps and spells. Your traps are no longer traps; they're just spells. You can use them right away. So they're no longer actually trap cards. Like they are printed as trap cards, but you can use them right away. So they're just spells.
I think a big thing where Labs sort of gained like
not even just spells, right? They're quick play spells.
But so I think the big one we saw, which is funny, right? So I think one event I remember Jesse was like, "I'm not playing Ash. It's not like super good into Rescue Ace." And that is just, you know, like pretty true for the most part. Like Ash is just not getting a crazy amount of value. And I just remember I'm like, yeah, no, I guess you're right. And I think I played like an OTS championship or like a you know, like a bigger locals in the area. And I didn't have Ash in my deck, and I'm like, oh, I'm versing a bunch of Rescue Aces. And I played against Labyrinth, and I was playing Unchained, and I'm like, this is actually more difficult than I can give it credit for. Like, not having Ash to just stop like the random FTK big welcome setups is so rough, and that might be a thing. Like, we might have seen a trend where people are like, okay, well, best player in the game, Jesse Cotton, doesn't play Ash Blossom in X, Y, and Z deck, and that might have been what happened with Unchained. Maybe the conversion was relatively bad because of tech choices. Maybe people are like, okay, well, Jesse did this, and Jesse has, you know, the highest results with Unchained. Let's run the conversion for that.
Yeah, but I mean, if we look at like the decks that did well with Unchained at our YCS, they were using like 12 hand traps.
Yeah, they're using a lot of hand traps.
Yeah.
Also, they talked about how the most played hand trap at this YCS was Drone Lockbird. And then Ash Blossom was
Labyrinth, right?
yeah. I don't think it's good against Rescue Case.
Too.
I don't think it's good against a lot of these. There was just a lot of really scary combo decks that people were worried about, right? All these decks that were like, you have the oh my god, why can't I think of the name?
Manadium?
So I don't even think like role is that. Yes, Manadium mostly. I don't even think it's that good against
What is that?
against Centurion.
Infernoble. That's
And Infinable. This is the other crazy thing, because I've been watching, you know, people like Pack and stuff grinding the Infernable deck, and I am so sick. I genuinely think that deck, if it gets to play, you need to have Droll, and they need to have the most specific garbage hand to lose to Droll. Like,
So
just Droll.
yes, and it's very similar against Tearlaments, where when
Yeah,
I
no, I
play
agree with that.
Tearlaments,
Sometimes you Droll them, they end their turn. You're like,
no,
this is great.
well, so yeah, when I played Tearlaments, there were times where like Max would roll me, and I'd be like, okay,
Mm.
I still just end on like Bahamut Shark Toad, like 3 other things. But there are other times, like if you have to lead a field spell, then Droll just fucking
Or
annihilates you,
terraforming.
right? Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, the
Yeah.
game's
But even
over.
so, a very similar thing, I think, with the Infernoble deck, where like there are
Mm.
certain spots where you have to lead a certain card. Yeah, Droll wrecks you, but
Mm.
if your opening play is normal summon guy who Neospace Connector, your Droll
Oh
did
yeah,
nothing. You like,
yeah. Well, like, yeah, it's the crazy part is like not even that per se. It's like I think you have to pair a lot of these into decks, like Infernable specifically. I think Manadium might be a little bit more of a free roll, but I have drolled Manadium before, and I have just been destroyed anyway, which is equally upsetting. Like, again, it throws back to like, I don't even know if droll is good.
no,
Does
I
that,
do not
like,
think Droll is good. I said this to Jesse that the day of after he. I don't know if it was like after he dropped or during the tournament, but I said I think like Droll is like a trap. Like I do
yeah,
not think
yeah.
Droll should be in your deck realistically. It should be somewhere
Droll
in
Droll
your deck,
cycles
like
you
your side deck.
cycles you a
But
card pretty much, right? It never trades up, and it always is just like, I'm doing it's a shifter-esque sort of card. Obviously Droll was before shifter, but we look at cards like that, and it's like, okay, I need to activate this. I do still need to pair it, but sometimes I'll be activating it, and it'll completely end that turn, right? And that's like where cards like shifter and Droll sort of come in, where it's like, can I play a bunch of hand traps?
I
Yes.
think you
Can I
just
play
make your
few?
deck worse, trying
Mm.
to make your deck slightly more favored into matchups that like you
Yeah,
might
yeah.
lose anyway, and that's not how you win a YCS. So,
Exactly,
uh,
exactly. Well,
uh,
okay, so here's another point that we can maybe look at, right? Let's say we're playing Droll and our opponent goes like first action Prosperity, and they reveal a deck that does not get like crippled by Droll whatsoever. And we've seen this before with decks like Pearly, right? Where it's like, you can utilize the card in hand, it can do something. And people just haven't even activated Droll in a lot of these instances, right? Because it's like, this is a matchup where none of this matters, and some decks
yeah,
don't have the
well,
benefit of like the extra
yeah, because
card in hand doing something, right?
also like by doing there are times where my opponent will
You
play
turn
something.
tactics on,
Yeah,
turn
yeah, like
frost
where my
on,
opponent will
yeah.
do a thing, and I will say like if I will not activate this card because if I
Mm,
do, I still probably I'm not going to be able to do something efficiently. And
exactly,
if
right.
I get tactics, I'm going to instantly lose the game. So I'm just not doing it.
And then when that happens, you have to look back and you go, why is Droll even in my deck? If I'm not activating this card in this spot specifically, why am I playing this card?
Yeah.
Uh, I know that card always felt that way though. I've never outside of the decks like the Trickstar Sky Striker deck where you could sort of have the opening of like these random FTKs with Droll specifically. I've never thought to myself, wow, Droll is a card that I have to have in my deck. It's always so disappointing.
Mhm. And so in the end, like we did see a lot of Labyrinth in
Mm.
Top Cut, and I think there were 2 in Top 4.
Yeah.
And
So
Top 4 was
Dinkabui played a very unique Labyrinth deck. He played like basically the Konami Dream, where a majority of the cards were just deck building like set cards.
yes.
Very unique compared to what we saw with other Labyrinth decks. Like quite literally just 3 copies of everything, backjacks. He played the Labyrinth setup, which is a
Yeah,
card that
it
I
gets
had
you like
friends
2
I
it
saw
gives you
that.
like
I,
it's the spell that like, gets you 2 Labyrinth
yeah,
cards.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
saw that in his list, and I literally just chuckled. I was like, maybe this card, like that card is crazy. Don't get me wrong. Like when it resolves,
I
like
think
that
it's
card,
also like
like
his deck is like really effective into the mirror.
yeah.
Yeah, no, his deck seems crazy, and so he also did some like cool stuff as well. So there's like funny stuff with this deck that maybe like people are like, oh man, Unchained, won the last YCS, and it was from like a relatively unknown player. So it's like, is this the power of of Joey, or is this the power of Unchained? And then this like furniture lab deck is sideboarding Lord of the Heavenly Prison. And that's another card. I learned this at locals where if they activate Lord, you cannot pop your set cards.
Mhm.
if they keep Lord up, and that is just toxic to me. So it's like another sort of thing that Lab can do that beats Unchained, where people say, "Oh no, Unchained versus Lab, like Unchained should win X amount of times." So that's more of a rambling point. My main thing that I wanted to bring up though, we did see an uptake of Unchained Labyrinth. I think is a big thing that came out of this weekend as well. We saw a couple of those in Top Cut from like pretty high top players like from Europe and North America.
And by Unchained Labyrinth, you tech like 2 lab or Unchained cards, like
Yeah. So the extra deck is heavier. So that comes
Mhm.
back to like the additional reach and the ability to sort of just like play into boards. Like set up a more ridiculous turn one. They're playing 3 copies of they're playing their Extravs, their souls, and stuff like that. But it's just 1 Shivara and then I think 2 traps. Yeah. Just gives you something to do with these extra bodies that you're generating, right? Because like in the conventional Labyrinth deck, it's like, what are you making? But in the Unchained one, you're making Yama, and that card is busted. You're getting
Yeah, Yama
Shivara.
is
Yeah.
broken.
Also, something quickly to note: Digabui did not play any pots in his deck, and I think that does play into what we said about Droll, right? Where it's like he has to first action pot a good chunk of the time. If he gets Drolled, that turns off stuff like Ariana, sorry, and like that is probably crucial enough. Like that's a card you want to access in a deck like his specifically. So that's like some cool metagaming that I think a lot of people
So
neglected.
I
Where
think
it's
it's
like,
less that, and I think when you look at his deck and you see stuff like blackjack, it's
mm,
more like what card am I trying to
yeah,
grab
like
when
how
the
am I getting to 40,
black
41
yeah
cards,
yeah
right?
but
Yeah.
not also just like the blackjack is grabbing the extra cards for him, right?
Mm. But
I,
like to the same effect though, it's like if we look at a card like Extra, like, so it's really easy to look at a card like Extra and be like, this draws 2 in a deck like Lab, right? Like
Mhm.
that's like sort of where you'd be at.
I'm
But then
also
it's
not.
like,
I also don't even
mm,
know if I entirely agree with not playing that. I still think I would try to
I
find a way to
I
put that
don't.
card in my deck.
I don't, and I haven't watched the. Oh wait, sorry. He broke it down. Pots are a good card. Those are cards I wanted to take. Blah blah blah. Can't cut too many traps, otherwise Arias and Backjack get worse.
See, that's what I'm saying. We're like
Yeah,
you like the backjack are the cards that like are getting you your extra cards
yeah.
instead of the pots. But I still think I'll try to find a way to fit that into my deck, honestly.
Oh, for sure. I think there's like other things. Like obviously, my playtesting with a deck like this hasn't been as frequent, but I'm looking at stuff like Trap Trick, and I'm just like, well, you have cards like Arias, and that basically just lets you cheat out any trap card in your deck. Like I would maybe like to have some more ignorant trap cards post side, like maybe in a metagame where like Branded is more like focal. You could have more copies of D Barrier, and then like a Trap Trick on turn one pairs with Arias, turns into D Barrier, or you could just hard draw D Barrier, right? And you turn skip them.
So we had top four was 2 Labyrinth, 1 Rescue Ace, and then we had the Runic Bestial deck. And then the finals ended up being Rescue Ace versus the Runic Bestial deck.
So both
And
labyrinths lost in top 4, huh?
Yeah, and I think the Labyrinth and the Rescue Ace, pretty favored for Labyrinth in my opinion. The Rescue Ace trap cards don't do a whole lot against Labyrinth,
Mhm.
which is another reason why I think Labyrinth had a very successful weekend in general. Not so much the case for the Runic Bestial deck. Runic Bestial destroys the Labyrinth deck, and I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
I saw that deck beat like 3 or 4 Labyrinth over the weekend or something like that. Um,
Yeah, that's
but
more a case of like how we've seen the runic cards into lab in like the last year, right? Like that was a big
mhm.
thing in WCQ format as well, where it's like, well, this labyrinth deck is like reasonably well positioned into like cash and everything else, but then you queue
Yeah,
into like
so what?
runic live twin sprite, and you're
Yeah.
just like, well, all these cards are great. You have in-engine MST. I'll let you have it.
Not only that, but you also have the bestials are really effective against all
Mhm.
the furniture cards and
Well,
Arias
no, well,
now.
like
So
just
you're
more
cutting
more
them
so
off
like
from all these extra
runic
cards.
itself, right? Like just runic in general, I think is well positioned.
Yeah.
But then
So I'm
then
saying
when
you
you
have
have the
both
bestial
error
stuff,
engines line up well against it, which I'm saying.
yeah,
So
yeah.
every single card in your deck lines up well.
Mm. The anti-labyrinth YCS winning strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. However, I do think that going into rescues, I still think Rescue Ace has a more favorable matchup against that deck because the Bestials don't really do anything. Um, and I think your traps line up slightly better
Mm.
against the trying to cut your opponent off from Hugin and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, but we did see that in the end that Rescue Ace was defeated by the Runic Bestial deck.
I feel
And
like if you do that finals multiple times, with I do think it's criminal that finals can end in time. That is something that I don't think North America has, right? They've changed that, or is
No,
North America still a
it's an
60-minute final?
I think it's 65 minutes. That's really
Okay.
weird, but I'm pretty sure it's 65 minutes. As insane as that sounds.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I think it is
But
literally 1
you
hour
can
5 minutes.
obviously you see the concern where it's like Ace can close the game quickly, but I think when runic cards exist, there's a lot more back and forth, and we've seen this with like runic decks, in Top Cut multiple times where like they're just inherently going to time. It's a
Mm-hmm.
control deck. It doesn't have its own battle phase, and it's trying to really just play the opponent off all of their cards and put them down to nothing, and that takes time.
And
Unless
a
you're
lot of the
hoping like
time
this.
they don't like a lot of the time also people don't concede against Runic.
I think
I
that's the
didn't
big thing.
watch the finals personally, so I don't know if that's what happened
No,
at
no,
all,
no.
but just like in general
If
that's what
you watch
happens.
a lot of the feature matches with the Bestial Runic deck, I think actually one was more like the games that ended a lot quicker with that deck
Mhm.
were the Infernable matchup where the game was just done because obviously it's a combo deck and a Runic deck, and the player playing Infernable is just like, well, why would I continue playing? Like, you're just putting me on no cards, like
Yeah.
nothing matters. Like, I'll lose in 2 turns, I'll just concede to let
Like
you have it.
Mhm.
you'll see people draw like 9 cards off Fountain, and people will not
Mm.
have scooped, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
"What are you
For
doing?"
sure,
And
for
it's
sure.
sort of like
It's
why?
that meme. It's that
With
meme,
like no
baby.
life
What are
point
you
deficit, no
doing?
win con, like you're just sitting there and you're just wasting everyone's time. I guess, sure.
Yeah.
Like it's fine to not concede, um, in certain spots because it's just like, well, like it's your tournament experience. Like there's nothing wrong with it. But I think for the purpose of like, let's say it's a game one and that's happened, like you should do it because you know that you are going to go to game 3 and like you're most likely going to lose. Like they have in-engine cards that get gain life. You have the Moonin, right? Like that's another
Mhm.
thing that can just happen. Like it's just there. It's like playing against Sky Striker and like your game one's taking like resolved 17 engages and you're just like, I can still win this. Like, I mean, probably not. You should probably have conceded 12 engages ago, but similar in concept. But I think I agree with you with the Rescue Ace versus that deck specifically. I do think he had a reasonable run of just decks that weren't lined up too well against Bestial Runic itself. But that happens, right?
No,
Like
that
it's never
absolutely
like
happens.
you
Sometimes
know.
sometimes it's just your day. Like
Mhm.
you play well, you get the good matchups, and that's how it goes.
Well, we also we talk about that a lot when it comes to just like the other meta calls, right? Like when it comes to hand traps and stuff like that. Like you can completely disregard a deck when it comes to your deck building process, and that could be a very small pocket in the metagame itself. But you could
Mhm.
just burst them back to back. Like you now inherently have a bad matchup because you didn't account for it, right? And that's just like a thing we see in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! When there's so many decks, and that's what we always try and preach. Is like when there's too many decks, you have paradoxes like that. You're gonna sit there, build your deck, be like, I'm gonna put Droll in. You
Right.
verse 10 decks that don't lose
Like
to Droll.
at
Like,
YCS
okay.
Indie, I didn't play against a Rescue Ace deck until round like 9 or 10 or something like that. It was crazy. Like sometimes, like even the most popular deck you don't play against. It's just
Exactly. And I think that's another thing we see more in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! In these broader formats, because I had this conversation, maybe it was with you guys, or maybe it was with like someone else. But you remember like Goki format.
Mhm.
I one of the it was like Oceanics or National. It might have been both. I did not put any respect on that deck. We're European territory. We didn't have Link Karibo, and I think this is pre-Gumbler. So like the deck is relatively watered down, but still very powerful. And we saw that at Euros, with Luke Parks winning. But this is like the one little pocket. I'm like, I don't know if anyone is either proficient enough with this deck, because this is before combo spreadsheets existed and like people are giving out all the information for free. And people were also very wary of playing these more ignorant sort of like combo strategies, right? Like knowing full well that Goki is a very consistent and just like resilient to most like interaction in terms of being like a deck. Like back then, it feels criminal to have not played Goki when everyone's playing a fair deck. But back then I was like, I'm just not going to put cards in my deck for Goki. Now it's like every deck is doing something unfair without people knowing that it's like you're playing an unfair deck. It's like everything is doing something unfair, and we're in this like weird pocket. You cannot ignore a section of the format, but sometimes you have to because you can't fit all of these cards into your deck, and that's the issue with modern Yu-Gi-Oh! That is what we talk about when we talk about 20 deck formats.
That is yeah, pretty much
Yeah,
exclusively.
and it's so bad. uh,
So I think that it pretty much covers with the YCS from what I wanted to talk about. I don't know if there's any
Yes.
other
No,
other
I
spots.
didn't watch. So I know like I do not watch live coverage of these events. Like I do not watch to streams because it gives me so much anxiety. I don't watch. I just let somebody tell me who like sometimes if I want to like learn a matchup, maybe I'll go back and I'll watch a match or two like after. But I can't watch them live. Like even if it's my friends playing, actually especially if it's my friends playing, I get so much anxiety. I just can't watch it.
Yeah.
So
I
don't have much to
like
say about
watching
this.
the European events. I think have very cool what is I don't know the technical term for it, but like the in between sort of content, right?
Yeah.
Like just the filler stuff.
You
I
mean
think
like
is very
commercial breaks?
Yeah.
yeah. So like, well, no, USA loves doing the commercial breaks, but EU has content like filmed to be in between. Like USA will do interviews. I like those. It's always my friends are answering these questions, and I'm like, oh hey, like that's my boy. That's that's Mike Albanese is always doing the interviews in the USA ones, and it's always funny to see Mike on the TV. But for EU, they're doing legacy formats. You'll have people like Marcello versus Jesse. You have the other commentators playing these old formats against like the really good European players, and I really like that. I think that's really cool. It's a good way to fill time when there's a void, and that happens a lot with Yu-Gi-Oh streams as well, because like there might be a ruling discrepancy, time extension, deck checks, stuff like that, and you have these big 20-minute gaps at the end. Or some matches just finish so quickly, you just need something to fill the time in between. I think EU does a very good job with that. So
Yeah,
that's
I think
why I like
what they do in NA a lot is they'll play feature matches from previous events to fill the time. I just remember there was one
same event, right? They play like round one.
There was one where like somebody messaged me and they were just like, "Congrats on your top," and I was like, "I'm not even at the event. What are you talking about?"
I
and then they're like,
this.
"Oh," and it was like a replay of like my Nats top 64 feature match. For something, and I was like, I didn't even enter this event. Like, what's going on? Like, why are people? I just remember that happening because they just replayed it or something, and I'm like, okay, great, like, fun. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's again, I can't speak to the specifics. I have seen a couple of them in the past, but like, I didn't watch any of the ones from this event, for example, so I can't speak to the specifics of like the content they had. But yeah, I do think it's a good idea to have like pre-recorded segments or something done ahead of time to like fill the gap, because that's where I feel like probably a lot of the like viewer decline probably is the downtime. Like I'm also I haven't looked at the metrics, but I'm sure you don't get much viewer decline during the middle of a match. I'm sure it's when the match is over.
But I think when it becomes really, really awkward for Konami is when the other streamers, right? Like like your famous YouTuber streamers are restreaming the YCS.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily them adding anything extra to the experience. Like in my opinion, like if I'm watching one of the YouTubers or like popular streamers, I'm not watching it for their commentary on top of that. If that makes sense, like
well, because you're watching it for a different reason. You're watching this for the competitive.
Yeah, so but when you see like it'll be like Yu-Gi-Oh streamer X has 1,000 more viewers than the official channel. I think to myself, okay, like how do they fix this? I don't know if there is a way to necessarily fix it, because that's just like an inherent thing that happens. People gravitate towards certain content creators versus like the official channel, because why not? They paid for the sub, they want to get the mileage out of it. But I think that's where good content in between comes through, because that's what the other restreams they facilitate. They have content in between, so it's watch match. If there's nothing in between, then why would you continue watching that stream specifically? You could just watch the restream, right? And that's filling the void, and that's what happens with USA a lot. I feel, you'll have like 1,000 people watching the USA one, you'll have 3,000 people watching something like Fafa restreaming it, and that's unfortunate, but it's just what has to happen. I think, which is how streaming works now. But I'm sure Konami sees it and they're like, oh man, why are our numbers so bad? The metrics, man. If you put all this money into the streaming process, I think filling it with content is always good. Whether it be viewer battle, fun stuff in between. The quizzes, the EU quizzes, we love those ones. The Yu-Gi-Oh 20 question stuff, we love that stuff. Bring that back. Maybe someone from Konami is listening. Let's get.
I remember the Pictionary from years and years ago. I think, right? Somebody sent me a picture of that once. It was years ago though, but I do remember that. And then and that just speaks to the fact that I've just said that I hate watching these streams, but I generally don't watch these streams. But that stuck with me. right? Was just that little in between thing. I can't
memorable.
even tell you what
Fun,
event it
right?
was. Yeah.
Well, no, they used to do it for like every. I
Yeah, I
remember
know.
like on the Friday you show up early. It's like, oh, you and a friend, let's do some Pictionary,
Hmm.
and it would always be like, people. Maybe it's different for us because we know these people,
Yeah.
but there would be people that other people are fans of as well. Like again, content creators, pro players, and they're doing something fun, and you see them out of their element of like maybe normally playing a game in like a high pressure situation. You just get to see them do fun stuff, and I think that's really cool. Just like seeing a different side to a lot of these players that you don't normally get to see on these streams.
Hmm.
It sort of humanizes them more than just like it's like, here's the stream, watch the game. Shut up.
So I think that pretty much settles the competitive side of Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of, so we have no more events until February,
Yes.
which is for the masses. That will be the 3v3 YCS, right, in
Yeah.
Vegas.
Well, there'll be two 3v3 YCSs. Yeah, so it'll be 3v3 Costa Rica. The week after 3v3 Vegas, we'll have a 1 week gap, and then we'll have YCS Sydney. That'll be the first standard YCS of 2024, and we have nothing else announced after the fact, right? That's what we have currently.
Yeah, I
think
don't
that's
think I don't. Yeah, I think that's accurate. I don't
So,
think
so
there's anything else
those
announced.
those will be like the three events that lead in Photon Hypernova, as well as Maze of Millennia. So we'll get to see cards like Transaction Rollback. We'll get to
I
see
think you
Bonfire.
Phantom, not Photon Hypernova, but I know what you mean.
Phantom
Yeah,
Nightmare.
no,
Phantom
sorry,
Nightmare.
yeah,
Yeah.
Phantom
Phantom.
Nightmare.
So the next two
So,
sets would be Phantom Nightmare and Maze
Maze of
of
Millennia.
Bologna.
I forgot that set was coming
so
out.
we should also be getting we'll be getting Maze reveals in the next probably 2 weeks, I think, because that set comes out like what, mid-January, end of January.
We should know every card in this set, right?
No, there's TCG exclusive cards.
Oh, there are. Oh, never mind. All
Wait,
right.
for Maze? Oh,
yes.
okay.
Are there?
Oh, cool.
Yep,
Yeah,
the cover card is a TCG exclusive card.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Are you? Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
my bad. All right. I thought this was based off of.
It's a Flame Swordsman TCG exclusive card.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I thought this was just based on Animation Chronicle 2023, so I thought we knew basically all the cards. But if there are TCG exclusives, then obviously we don't.
Well, I think a lot of
Don't
it will
know.
also come down to like reprints as well, because I feel like we are in this weird point of as we've discussed before, we see a lot of these products coming out, and we're just like, I wonder where a lot of these Power of the Element cards will be. Like it wouldn't surprise me if we see some of it shoehorned into this set. Like we haven't seen the product schedule for 2024 yet, with good reason, because it's just generally not how it works. We could, we could get some cool reprints. Maybe they could introduce some unconventional stuff. We've seen some cool stuff out of Japan that could happen with this set, but a lot of it doesn't dictate the competitive scene. That's more like secondary market and just like good set stuff in general. We can maybe get to that in another point, but
yeah. So each of these sets always have a TCG kind of archetype in them. So the first one was in the King's Court, where we had the what's it called cards, the Joker cards. And for Maze of Memories, we had the Gate Guardian cards, and those were TCG exclusive also. And now we're going to have some sort of, which looks like something Flame Swordsman related.
Yeah, but I'm shocked they haven't, because the other one, Maze of Memories, the Gate Guardian stuff was like front and center, and they were advertising it as like Gate Guardian support set, like everyone get ready. And then this one is like,
I mean, it probably means it's terrible. I mean,
well,
even like
so are the Gate
more
Guardians.
terrible than the Gate Guardian cards.
Yeah, that's
but-
difficult to do. That's tough. Yeah, maybe.
And those come out January 17th through 19th. And then after that, the Phantom Nightmare is mid-February. And also, you can come watch me play in the UDS finale tournament with me and all the other UDS people.
That is the same weekend as Costa Rica, right?
So that'll be the first streamed tournament in which you can watch people play Phantom Nightmare and Maze of Memories. So we'll probably have all of that and a new Forbidden List by then. So that'll be exciting. You'll be able to watch me and some of the best players in the game playing some Yu-Gi-Oh!
I'm very hyped for that event. I think you guys are definitely going to be taking it a lot more seriously than people will give you guys credit for. We don't, you guys don't even know the pricing yet, right? Like
we don't know anything about it except for the dates, and that honestly, that's all we know right now. Is that they said, save these dates. You're gonna be here from. They gave me the dates of Thursday the 14th to Monday the 18th. They said save the dates. That's when you're coming.
Okay. So yeah, like I mean that seems like it's going to be a great event to watch, especially knowing that Costa Rica most likely won't be streamed. For what we understand, we're going to have, a good weekend of Yu-Gi-Oh content, leading up to Vegas. That's always good. I feel like Vegas is always an event people love going to. It's in a fun city. It's a 3v3. You get to play with your friends, right?
Ryan and I get to go to our favorite restaurant.
Yes, we do.
Morimoto
Morimoto
time.
Steakhouse at
Yep.
the MGM Grand. Literally my favorite
Yes, and
restaurant ever.
I'll be watching. I'll be playing a One Piece online regionals in my hotel room, and then watching professional wrestling.
Ooh.
Anyway, I can't wait.
So now we can get on to the next topic, which is what we really wanted to talk about.
So I will also preface, I'm going to say, I think okay, I don't want this to be just completely negative. I want it to be a little bit more constructive. I understand privately, we've talked about this a lot, and I'd like to believe we got a lot of our knee-jerk reactions out of our system. We do not like this. We do not agree with this product, first of all, and we're going to talk about it in a second. We're talking about the Egyptian god stainless steel reveal. Everyone on social media has been, I guess the only way to describe it is making fun of it. Everyone has been making fun of it. Everyone, and I will, so let's get.
And the people who do like it do not like it for its price point.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So let's get the first things out of the way. Both of you, we've all said this. They look like fake cards, which is hilarious.
Yeah,
to me.
That was like a big initial reaction from everyone.
Yeah.
These are cards that I have seen.
Before we get into the initial reaction, can we also get into how disappointing the buildup was? Because they built it up over the course of a couple days, saying we have this new cool thing to celebrate.
It was really
25th
bizarre
anniversary,
honestly.
And I'm like, oh, this could be cool, but honestly, I also had low expectations. But this even defeated my low expectations.
Yeah.
Like, it was worse than I actually imagined.
Do you know what this reminded me of? Like the world's announcement for the 25th anniversary thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And it was just barely anything.
We had this big announcement at the World Championship with a big countdown, and then they said, "Hey, it's this event that 99% of you can't even go to."
Literally 99% of you can't go to. Lottery system.
If anyone says OCG is the favorite, that was probably the biggest marker of it. It's Japan only.
Okay, so
not Japan.
So a couple background things. So this is for those of you that have no idea what we're talking about, there was a product revealed a couple days ago, or 2 days ago now, I guess, called the Stainless Steel Egyptian God Card Series. So if you have no idea what that is, pause this right now, literally type that in Google and look at them. Have a good laugh, and then come back. And then we will, to break down what exactly you're looking at. The artworks on those are not based on any anime artwork or any TCG artwork. They are based on the original manga artwork. So those appeared for those in North America, or I believe also European territories. I don't know 100%. I know 100% for North America. The Yu-Gi-Oh arcs that we know as Duelist Kingdom and Battle City were localized and released in Shonen Jump manga volumes titled Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist. For whatever reason, they didn't just release Yu-Gi-Oh! As Yu-Gi-Oh! It is just called Yu-Gi-Oh! For the first, I want to say, 7 volumes, and they actually don't play cards for a majority of early Yu-Gi-Oh! If any of you are familiar with Season 0 of the anime, as it's usually called, when they're playing a bunch of other different games, that is the beginning of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga. And then
doesn't Joey commit a bunch of crimes?
Yeah.
In real life?
Yes.
And that's what I'm asking.
And then starting with Duelist Kingdom through Battle City is when every conflict is resolved just by playing a card game, like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. So they called that Duelist. And then the last arc, they called Millennium World in the manga. So if you have seen the manga, either Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist or Millennium World, as the god cards appear in the manga, they have these artworks, and in the English versions, like to the best of my knowledge, I can't imagine anybody who worked on the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG was within 100 miles of the localization of the manga. I have read the manga. I just like reading manga. I have a bunch of Shonen Jump, stuff, and the translations for the cards are like hilarious in the manga because they're almost always just like direct translations of whatever it said in Japanese, and they're not related on anything how they were translated in the TCG, you know, even though they weren't released in the manga wasn't released in North America until like way after the card game was already popular. The card game's popularity is why the manga got even localized in the first place. And the translations you see on the stainless steel Egyptian god cards and the names they have are just, to the best of my knowledge, the like direct transliterations of how they were in the manga and exactly how they appear in like the Viz North American translation. So me being one of the 5 people in North America that have actually read the manga and own all of them and would even know what that is, I don't even want this product. And I can't imagine how unappealing it is to people that haven't. And I think for North America or Europe, I imagine that's most people haven't, because manga isn't nearly as popular here as it is, you know, in Japan, because that's just not really how, like, that's not how our like content pipeline works. Like most of the stuff here gets popular because of an anime first, and then if people like the anime, they'll go and read the manga or whatever. But that's not, you know. So I was thinking for a while, how would you fix this product for a North American audience, right? And I think the answer, which I've now realized this can't be done, which I'll explain as well. If you look at the Japanese version of the anime and how cards appear, they look just like they do in real life. They have the regular artwork, they have the name, they have attributes, they have stars, they have the little effect text box and everything. In North America, that had to be changed because of North American advertising laws. And I guess that just extended to basically most, other English-speaking countries, and however, just basically anything that 4Kids ended up distributing, I'm sure just ended up falling in this umbrella. And that's why, for those of you, in the United States who watched Yu-Gi-Oh! On Saturday morning cartoons like I did, the cards are just these big art boxes, and they have like an attribute, and that's it, right? Because they had to look recognizable as Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, but to fit advertising laws, they were not allowed to look like the exact product, because you weren't allowed to use the exact product in the cartoon that was advertising them. Like, I don't know the exact rules and definitions, but that is why the cards look different.
Did you guys still have like advertising for Yu-Gi-Oh! Sets while the show was playing though?
Yes.
Is that like the mid?
I'm pretty sure there was.
There were definitely commercials in between on Yu-Gi-Oh! Sets. Like I remember seeing like Power of the Duelist commercials whenever, but it's more so like you're not allowed to use products in the cartoon. It's supposed to be like child advertising protection laws, which like when you really think about it, that's pretty agreeable. Like I don't have any
the early 90s from what I understand. I did watch a video on this, and I think it was like Care Bears and something else, and it was like leading into Power Rangers that really swung it.
I believe so. Right? Yeah, something like that.
It was like something about like non-educational TV shows in a certain time frame, directed at children, and then like the whole marketing thing. Right?
I think also a big one was Transformers, because I know that Transformers was more or less literally the cartoon was literally just a big commercial to buy toys, more like, honestly. But
like if you really think about it, a lot of these are like that, right?
Yeah, well, yes, of course, and Yu-Gi-Oh was too. At a certain, although Yu-Gi-Oh didn't start out that way, but it ended up being that way. So my idea was for a Japanese release of these stainless steel Egyptian gods, you can make them look like the manga because that is what is recognizable to their market. But for us, you make them look like the anime cards. I then realized, however, why you can't do that. I talked to Vince about this actually, and he brought this point up, and I went, oh, that's a good point. He was like, well, no, they can't do that, because if they did that, then now the cartoon would retroactively be breaking the law, because it would now be the exact product.
Shut up.
No, because that's what that is, right? Because they had to make, that's why they can't produce, like, we've been saying for a long time, why don't they just make cards that look like the anime? Like, make promos of cards that look like the anime. Well, they can't because the anime cards have to look different from physical cards. That's the
But
whole point.
isn't the whole premise like when it's actively being like
No,
played
I
in
don't
the
think it
clubs,
matters.
or no?
I don't think it matters.
Because
I
right
think it's
now,
just like,
if like Yu-Gi-Oh is exclusively on like streaming services, which I believe it is, like I don't
oh,
think
maybe that's a good point. I don't know.
that's
I
what
don't
I'm
know
trying
about
to work
that.
out. I don't think there
I
is
don't
like
know
there's a
how.
point where this will happen.
Right, but then it gets to the point where if you print anime accurate Egyptian god cards, maybe it's like we can never release this cartoon ever again, and it's like where's like which one is more valuable,
guess,
right?
man.
So I don't know, but that was my original idea of how to fix it was make them look like anime cards, and then somebody pointed out to me that if they do that, the whole point is the anime cards can't look like physical things they sell. That's the whole point. And if they sell things that look like the anime, ironically, that defeats the whole point of why they looked different to get around advertising laws. so it's all very convoluted.
On your note with how the manga wasn't like, well, not well received, but it's just something that like Western society probably didn't
it's just not as like there's no way it's like
sure.
most people that know about Yu-Gi-Oh know about the
they
show.
associate them with counterfeit cards, right? Like that's
Yes.
where we're sort of going. Instead of being like this is from the manga, because I didn't know where they were from. I saw the fake ones. I think I told you guys this, where it's like I saw these on counterfeit cards. These are like DeviantArt level like customs, right?
Because they're from the manga.
Knowing they came from the manga.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, I think also when you look at the font of the text, it looks like something that you would see on one of those stickers.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like even like the font on the card makes it look fake.
I think the biggest issue with this inherently for our audience, right? Like saying like the North Americas, the Europe, everything. I think the biggest issue is they need an explanation. They're giving us too much credit. This is I think this is going to be an item that is like overprinted versus like demand, right? Like supply is not meeting demand. Demand is not meeting supply. It's just going to be very, very awkward. What they could have done is they could have included a special like hardback edition, and you up the price. Kazuki Takahashi, rest in peace. Did some great artwork. You could recommission the manga, and you could integrate it with this product specifically. It gives more what's the word I'm looking for? More like context as to what this is to the average consumer that isn't really into the whole process. Like they might like Yu-Gi-Oh, but they've never read the manga, right? Like that could be a thing. They could do something that ties it all in together. And I think that would be a better way to sort of approach a product like this. Outside of just like buy this is $400, and this is before we even get to touch on the fact that you have a chance to win a normal BLS promo card that was exclusive in Japan and is quite expensive, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So Ryan, you just sent this picture right there.
Yes.
So you're saying the card could not look like this?
No, it could look like this. I'm saying it can't look like the anime cards. So
I think I would have a way less of a problem if it looked exactly like this.
Well, that's what it looks. What do you mean? That's what it looks like.
It's
like a dual Devastator, this medium.
Oh, small. The dual. So the dual Devastator promos were designed. So if you guys have seen the oversized dual Devastator promos, those were designed to look exactly like a manga card.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if you look at the name of the card where it says the God of Obelisk and you see the artwork, that's the pose and the flavor text. It's an effect monster. I don't know why its flavor text is like this, but it even says the player shall sacrifice 2 monsters to the God of Obelisk. The opponent shall be damaged, and all the opponent's monsters shall be destroyed. That is what it says. That's what the translation is in the manga. I think that's one of almost exactly what it says in the stainless steel one, right?
So I'm saying if there was no border on the cards, if the attack and defense was in like right underneath it, if there was no attribute symbol, if it literally was just
I see what you mean.
Like that.
Oh, then you would like it.
What
That's
I think
fair.
actually would have worked as well. So this is like I'm gonna go back. Oh, I've been playing One Piece. Haha, cool. Do you know how they have like the manga artwork, like the high rarity stuff, right? You know how these come in a case? It'll be like the 3 cards in a case. What if they are maybe a little bit bigger and you have the card in the case, but the background is this specific scene from the manga, and that is like the aesthetic.
Oh, that would be insane.
Black and white card. Yes. Yeah, so
that would be so crazy.
The manga god set, and it would just be $1 million. Like, it would just look amazing, right?
Yeah.
Aesthetically, I think it would look great. Instead, you have these really like black background. Like Jeff said, like it's more cluttered, but it's like blue, yellow, red. And like these are manga cards. You did not see them colorized, right? Like,
Yeah.
I assume not. Yeah.
Which, can
so
I
like,
also
why wouldn't you lean more into that?
While we're on this topic, because I will never get to talk, I'll never get to speak about this ever again. I actually cannot believe how topical it is that I just got to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh manga for like 15 minutes. Highly recommend it, by the way. If you're interested in reading it like in a very, very convenient and easy way, this is crazy plug. I'm not being, no one is paying us to say this. The Shonen Jump app is like $3 a month, and you can read 100 chapters of manga per day. And like that's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, so in theory you could read the entirety of all of Yu-Gi-Oh! In like 3 days if you wanted to. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist is it is 219 chapters. That covers Duelist Kingdom through Battle City. And even if you think you know the whole like Yu-Gi-Oh! Story, I will say, as it was presented to the Western audience, it was changed drastically from the original tone and the original story, and it is quite different. And I really recommend it if you just want to see Yu-Gi-Oh! In a different light. And on the app version, a lot of the time, they just take them directly from the compiled volumes, and there are some like notes from Kazuki Takahashi, and there's a really heartfelt message actually at the end of the very, very last chapter of Millennium World, which is the last arc that, like, now that he's passed, it's very I actually got
sure
like,
I shared that quote when he passed away.
when
I'm very familiar with it. Yeah,
I recently reread Millennium World. I think it was a little bit after he passed. I reread it, and like I got emotional reading his last message. There's an afterword that was
it's like the After 7 Long Years one.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Oh yeah, no, that one's lovely. Yeah, no, I haven't read the manga, but I've seen that one specifically, and I think that is beautiful.
That is in the end. That is at the end of the. It's actually, whoa, is it? It's so in the Shonen Jump app, Millennium World is 65 chapters, and then there is a chapter 66 that is just his afterword. And it's like, even if you don't read anything, I would actually recommend just going to read that. And that was, I believe, in the compiled volume at the end. So highly recommend it if obviously if you're listening to this and you enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! In some degree. And this is to tie into what you were saying earlier about the aesthetic. One of the reasons I generally actually like reading manga more than watching anime is I like the black and white aesthetic, and I generally
there's not too much going on.
Yeah,
right? Like,
and I also
really nice.
think the art is generally better. Like a manga, like manga is drawn, like each individual manga artist has their own art style, and then when it's made into an anime, a production studio gets their hands on it, and they generally keep the art style similar, but it's a little different, right? And it's a little bit more homogenized, and I don't like the aesthetic as much. And if you look at the Kazuki Takahashi's art in its original form in the manga, it is really good. And I really like all the monsters, how he draws them. And it's just, I like it a lot. So, I would like some good to come out of, if anything, I would like to use this, they've given us these stainless steel god cards with manga arts that everyone hates. And if anything, I will use this as a platform to say, I think you should read the original manga, and I think you might actually enjoy it more than you think. So I will just throw that out there. I will never get a chance to talk about this ever again. So I'm going to milk.
The takeaway from the $400 product is read the manga.
Read the manga.
Right? Yeah, so I agree.
Yeah, so I enjoyed it a lot.
Just on that note, though, right? So do you think this is another throwback to how there's too many cooks spoiling the broth when it comes to like the Yu-Gi-Oh! IP? Because I feel like this is something that isn't really like integrating too well, whether it be on the trading card side, which is probably the majority at this point, versus the general Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans versus fans of the original series, the manga, all of this stuff. I feel like it could have been initiated a lot better, right? Like this just seems like, hey, here's another product. The Dark Magician didn't sell well at all.
So that's what I want to talk about, is how that Dark Magician did not sell at all. They are saying, "Oh, pre-orders closed," and guess what? They didn't because they
No,
couldn't
they just
sell it,
kept it going.
and they kept going, and it was embarrassing. I felt embarrassed for them that they kept peddling it out, pushing it out, and it's like they didn't take the hint and went and did something else that was like, "Hey, here is this a high-end product that
Hmm.
you can't use," and it's just very tone deaf in my opinion. Like, it
Mm.
makes me think that really no one is listening and no one cares, or if they are
So
listening, like,
I
um
agree. I agree with this. However, after we found out that this is a product that Japan is also getting, I think they did do quite a good job at catching themselves, knowing that maybe the market for this in our regions, is not as big as Japan would be, and they're giving us, the promotional stuff. Like, I
Okay.
think it might be a little bit too far gone, but it is a nice touch, knowing like they know that this is probably not going to sell well, right? And it's just like, well, for the people that do buy it, you
Well,
now have
I
the chance
no, no, no,
to
no.
get.
I 100% believe that when they did this, they thought this is going to be crazy, and only reason they may have thought this isn't going to do well
Is
is
the
after
Dark
the
Magician?
yes, is after
Yeah.
their admit.
Yeah,
Which
Yeah.
that
which I
makes
will
sense.
say, I do want to talk a little bit, like not a whole. I do want to analyze that situation a little bit. So the Blue Eyes went crazy. Everyone
That
thought it
was
was the
also
craziest
when
thing
people had
ever.
disposable
That was,
income. There was a
yes,
lot more.
there was a
There was
lot.
COVID, right? That's just how
Yeah,
it works.
yeah.
Yes.
However, the Dark Magician being at a time people have less money, and then
It was
a
more
time
expensive.
when it was more expensive. That I think,
Hmm.
honestly, I think that was the biggest factor. I actually think that was the
Yeah.
number. I think if the Dark Magician stayed the same price as the Blue Eyes, I don't think it would have flown off the shelves like the Blue Eyes did. But I don't think we'd be in the situation where you can look on the Facebook page right now and there's a post say, like, I got a Facebook ad that
Hmm.
was like, if you need a holiday gift for a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, try the Platinum Dark Magician. I'm like, how rich do you think I am?
No
That
thanks.
I'm
I
just
would much rather
casually,
the Hanukkah Yu-Gi-Oh sweater.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
literally like under the menorah.
Yep, yep.
Here is this
So I
here's this
think the
$300,
other
like, it's like,
issue
what is happening?
the other issue that this Dark Magician has specifically, again, we might have affirmed this from. It looks so much more different than the other platinum or steel cards that have been released, whether it be in Japan, whether it be here. All of the other ones aesthetically look identical, and like you have a
And
gold
this one
one, a
looks
silver one,
different.
platinum one, but
Yeah.
Japan also has a steel Dark Magician that fits the theme of the Blue Eyes. Like this one's like textured. It looks washed out. It almost looks fake. And we say this every time.
We've said
These
this every
cards look
time. It
fake. It's
does
like,
look
what are we
fake.
basing this off? But like genuinely, you look at the Blue Eyes, and like when we were, when I was in Japan, I'm looking at the gold Blue Eyes. I had a silver Blue Eyes that one of my friends bought, and he got sent to my address. And I'm just looking at these things, and I'm like, okay, I understand where the appeal comes from. This is a premium product. This is good, right? Like, then you have the Dark Magician. You look at this, you go, oh, now they're just phoning it in. There's just no point. And you saw this downward trend in Japan. I'm sure a lot of people may not have seen this or heard of it. They had a steel. I don't know if it was silver or platinum or something. They had a Dark Magician girl with the the OG MFC artwork. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it was MFC artwork, but that didn't command a crazy high price point, and you figure it would because it's Dark Magician Girl. Like it, comparative to like Blue Eyes or something, it was only half the price of like the next one for a good period of time, and I think it's actually worth less than our Blue Eyes now. So they had a Dark Magician Girl, but that was at the tail end of all of this happening, still during COVID, and the price just did not match any of the other exclusive items that they had. So it's interesting they're still trying to pump this out. They must still get enough people buying them, but like looking at secondary market and stuff like that, like the demand isn't there after the fact. I think it's just a lot of people like, I'm buying this. It might be expensive at some point. I'm putting my money somewhere. I think you're just going to see that trend continue. It's like if these sell, sure, but
So the other
probably
the
just
other
not for
thing
us.
is, as far as like a premium product goes, I think there needs to be, like, I understand it's premium and so it's $400 or it's $1,000 or it's $1,300. I
Mhm.
think you could make a premium product for $100 and people would be much more willing to buy. I'm not saying that these stainless steel gotcha should be $100. I'm saying that I think you could make. We talked about this, I believe, as well. You know, like high res art things, right? You find popular monsters and you sell like well put together, like high resolution artworks, like framed for $100, $200, whatever.
Japan, right?
You know, maybe in a
I saw them
frame
on
with
display.
like a promo of the card in the frame or something too. You know what I mean? Just like anything, and just don't make them $400. Like what? You know, like don't make them $400.
Like the Konami style website has a lot of stuff. I'm pretty sure it's Konami style, but it might also be a point redemption thing with like buying at your local satellite store in Japan. But they had like the artwork things of like Eldritch the Golden Lord, the full art from the art book. I'm pretty. Was it from the art book? Yeah, when they had Golden Lord. Yeah, they did. And then you had like Lady Labyrinth. I'm pretty sure it was Lady or Lovely. They had just a bunch of other like these, not necessarily like iconic, but these like really really nice like specific. What's the word I'm looking for? Like an art term where it's just like, these are cards that have a lot of detail, and it's a lot of detail that you can't really see in the artwork on the card itself, right? Because it's never full art.
It's a very very small. We got a very very small window into those.
Dante's feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you know Eldritch the Golden Lord is wearing heels? Well, in the art book, that's not a joke, by the way. In the art book, his full art, he is wearing heels. I know. I'm not. I know. You know that. I'm telling the viewers at home.
I know.
Eldritch the Golden Lord wears heels.
Huh? But like, think about all of this crazy artwork that could be like you said, like they could just do it. It's like a frame thing. It doesn't even have to have a promo. I don't know if the Japanese ones come with anything.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying they have to. I'm just saying like you could, like that would probably go buy it, you know, like
I also mentioned something that I think would be like a reasonable product would be like similar to the Dual Devastator cards, but maybe in better quality and potentially framed. You could do these small, like aesthetically pleasing, like medium-ish. Like I don't know what the next scale would be, but like these cards, right? Like you could do those god artworks and you have them like that, and it's just like, well, you would have 3 framed gods here. You
like
could
the
have
oversized
the
cards,
background or something,
whatever they're called.
Exactly. Yeah, it would, whatever the Dual Devastator level is. Like, and those are similar in the sense that like these are things that you can put on display. You can present them. They don't have to have a crazy price point, but I think they are in a similar vein, right? Like it's less commitment. They're still aesthetically pleasing, and like functionally they're identical, right? Because you can't play with them. There's just no issue. Like you could literally give me a sticker of those gods, the god cards, and it would be the same as giving me a metal one, right? Like in terms, like if you make it exclusive enough and you make it appealing enough and the price point is good enough, I think people will still purchase it. And we've seen that in Japan as well. Like you don't have to make everything out of metal and put a weird price tag on it. But
well, rather that still than I don't know. Yes. I
Dark Magician.
yeah, but I don't know.
So I also want to get into it. We haven't even talked about the Blackluster Soldier, right?
That was going to be the next thing I was going to bring up, but I would go for
it. So also, there are technically 2 ways to get this, but you also have this very rare, ultra rare normal monster version of Blackluster Soldier that originally was it was in Japan as a prize card, I believe.
That was like the first prize card, right?
It was like a very
DLS.
Yeah. And if you buy these stainless steel god cards, you get put into a raffle to win one of these 2,000 copies. And I think that first of all, that's kind of crazy that this card is made to get this way. Also, there's a way you can get it by writing your name on a card and physically mailing it into Konami.
Yeah. I think that's like also just like a United States like sweepstakes law that you can't require a purchase. But it is. Okay. Yeah. And there has to be an alternate method of entry.
Is there like a law against like the whole lottery concept? Because Japan loves doing that. And I think that would make a lot more sense than mailing in like a poster board card, in an envelope to Konami with your name.
So the only again, I'm not an advertising attorney, although I have been talking a lot about advertising law this episode for some reason. The only thing that I'm reasonably sure of is that I do believe it's just you in the United States. I don't think you are allowed to require a purchase. I think that is, I believe you must offer an alternate entry method that does
Okay,
not require
so
a
that makes
purchase.
more sense because
That's the only thing that I
Europe doesn't have
believe
that.
to be
So
the
the European
case.
region doesn't have the option for sending in a card to Konami, and it would
Yeah,
just
Yeah,
be
I don't know.
unmanageable
Yeah,
for
I
maybe
my
that's not a
region
thing there.
specifically.
Yeah, I don't
here
know.
it's called AMO. Consumers must not be required to pay to enter. There must be a free alternative means of entry. Eligibility requirements must be spelled out. Odds of winning must be disclosed. The contest rules must specify the number of prizes and types of prizes to be awarded. And then sweepstakes starts and end dates must be detailed. It says that's a general sweepstake law requirement.
Okay, cool. And that's United States law require. And then we
Yeah.
see the Canadian
Canada.
one on the bottom. Oh yeah, the Canadian one, to the best of my knowledge, is
Okay.
you may not have a random sweepstakes, and it must require a test of skill. So what they do to get around that, because laws exist only for corporations to break them, I guess, is just they make you answer like literally like a fourth grade level math problem.
Yes.
Just so you
What is
demonstrated
100
skill.
divided by 12?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, like something like crazy. Like, I don't know. So yeah, that's a fun one too. Um
so what's frustrating about this is that not only is this a part of Yu-Gi-Oh history, but also Japan has done the same exact thing with
Mm.
3,000 copies, and they give them away to people at tournaments.
Yeah,
So they're holding.
you have
They've been
to win these cards.
yes, they've been
Yeah.
holding tournaments to give away these cards, and instead of doing something like that for us, they are just you can
And
randomly get it, and
it's
that's
very funny though, just to note, because Japan would do stuff like this for other cards, right? They had it for like another Best Dragon leading up to their nationals, and they did it with the world's replicas and stuff like that in a similar organized play vein for their region. So it'd be like Japan, the Asias, and stuff like that. Um, this one has commanded a higher price point on the secondary market because it is iconic. So I would not be surprised if Japan's promo cards like that feed into the system again, and they're just going to maybe reprint some of the older prize cards. In that sense, I don't, because like if they're so rare and exclusive, like it shouldn't make a difference. And if you're integrating them back into the organized play pool and making people have something worth playing for, similar to like One Piece and other card games where your prize cards aren't this like obscure card that has been created solely for the purpose of being a prize card. They're iconic, cards from the show, that in the manga, stuff like that. And I think this was a really big step for them, for this card specifically in their organized play. This card is commanding a great price point compared to the other cards in the last like 3 years that are like $200. The stuff with like blue names and stuff like that.
yeah, this
It's
card in
funny.
Japan, I checked the other day, sells for roughly around $1,500, and that's
Mm,
for with 3,000 copies. I'm not sure if all the copies are in circulation yet. I know their tournaments are still going on, but this
yeah.
is 2,000 copies, so I imagine it'll be roughly the same or slightly more. And I would say maybe even slightly more because at least if it was a tournament, you would know who the winners are and how to get a
Mhm.
hold of them if you wanted to. This, you just have no idea, right? You have no idea who's going to get these.
I think they did have a giveaway. I think it was associated with, how Japan loves doing the you get a pack, you get the barcode, you submit it through your
Mhm.
satellite store. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have like a bunch of promotion stuff like that, and I think you were able to get the BLS that way, but probably a set amount. So I'm not entirely sure. It's not something I really looked into, but I know people have been getting them without winning tournaments.
Sure.
So I think like that is something as well. Maybe we could discuss. Where do you think cards like this specifically should be given away in promotions like this? Like, why aren't they tournament prizing? And I feel like we always go through this of like, oh, uncut sheet on the side event. Well, why isn't that in the YCS that is 2,000 people, and the prizing could just be the side
Why
event
is it
prizing?
so this goes okay, so this is going to translate into our talk about how, first of all, how other card games have own websites where they sell merchandise. Pokemon and
Mm.
Bandai does this, and they do very well. And one of the big things we talk about is how they gave away the Rescue Rabbit plushie, right? Or Rescue Rabbit. And if that thing was just sold for $40 to $50 on a website, they would sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Um, because they just made that and gave it away, you could also give that away as YCS prizing. I don't know why they didn't give that away as YCS. I would love to win that if I topped a YCS. That'd be sick.
I feel that way about
They're
so many exclusive things. It is borderline depressing. Like I'm just
they
like, oh, top 8, just give me stuff.
yeah.
Just
Eh,
give me that.
I think
So they are making this awesome card that's part of Yu-Gi-Oh history and is giving it away in a sweepstakes when they could have just added this to like YCS prizing.
But that's the crazy thing as well is like you're giving it away in the sweepstakes, and I don't think it will generate any like sales revenue. Like I don't think it's a good
No
marketing
one is
tactic.
going to spend $400 on this to potentially
For
win
a
this card.
chance, yes. But the thing is, however, if everyone feels that way, you most likely can purchase this product and just get the BLS by default, right? If it's not well received, you were just maybe printing $2,000 for no reason, you
Mhm.
know? Like that could be something to consider. However, if everyone has that idea, then we're
then
leaping
then there's nothing. Yeah, yeah. But if
there's no
everyone has that
reason
idea,
to
then
go
nothing. Then you're just so
Yep.
so.
You're playing
I
game of
guess
chicken.
I yeah. So like I've had this thought for a long time. I've had this thought probably it's been probably since I topped like my second YCS that I've had this thought of just like people complain about the prizing in Yu-Gi-Oh and that like it's not cash prizing, which I will say, just a lot of people that complain about prizing in Yu-Gi-Oh people that don't win prizes anyway. So zing. Anyways, and then you see the people that actually win prizing very consistently posting pictures of their 24 packs and are going like, this is not fun. Why is the prizing that bad? And then I empathize and I go, yeah, that does suck. You know,
Yeah,
but
it's like, oh,
but
here's another top 8 at a YCS, and now I've received my 38 Nintendo Switch.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, it's not great. Like, you know, whatever. But so how I've always felt about prizing is none of us are playing Yu-Gi-Oh to make none of us are entering Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments to make money. Like that's not a realistic goal, that's not a realistic thing, and that's not something that like, you know, you can't do it just based on how this works. But what I want and my favorite parts of doing well at events, you know, or whatever, or my favorite prizing is, as you guys mentioned, the exclusive things that you can't get any other way. And it's baffling to me how little of it there is. And that's like one of my personal favorite prizings I've received was from the 2022 championship. Let's tie this back into all the weird metal and, you know, whatever cards. The prize was the Crystal BLS.
Yeah, that was sick.
If you watch my top 64 feature match after I won, I popped off. I got out of my chair, I jumped up and down, I screamed. I was so happy that I won this dumb little thing that you cannot get any other way. I'm not kidding. You cannot get any other way than getting top 32 at your continental championship. And I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. There was not even a Worlds that year. So even if you win the tournament, you don't go to Worlds because there was no Worlds. So to me, that was the finals. To me,
you were so happy about that. And I think when you look at that prize breakdown, because I kept looking at it too, and the whole time all I was thinking is just like I just have to make I think top 8 is where everything scaled, where top 8 had the same pricing as everyone but first. First got the Starlight Rares from the complete sets.
which
whereas,
again,
like,
that's not
everyone else
exclusive.
top
So
8.
like I didn't.
No,
To me, it was
obviously
just
that doesn't matter.
yeah.
But the marker for me was you need to make that one little section to get the Crystal BLS, right? Like this exclusive pricing that is not available anywhere else. And that's the thing, though. At that point, you don't feel bad about making top 32. You were getting this exclusive item, and that I think that prize, the prize structure for that event was perfect. That is what Yu-Gi-Oh is meant to be, and that is what other games like Bandai do, where it's just like, you know, I played One Piece regionals. First, I've only been playing for a couple weeks. Like first Bandai regionals that I played, top 32 exclusive prize card, top 64 exclusive prize card. You make top 8, the pricing is almost identical top 8 through to second. as you know, it probably should be. And
Yeah.
each one is still worth a lot, and it's an exclusive item. It is something that makes you feel good, and now you don't feel like you'll feel terrible. You lose top 16, you don't get the big pay jump, but you're still getting these exclusive prizes that top 32 got. Like you
I think it's
don't need
also
to
very
feel bad.
easy to make it feel less bad for just going to the event to play
Exactly.
in general. So like I'm
And
gonna talk
every
about
example
when I
you
went to go
said,
book my flight to Vegas. My flight to Vegas,
Mm.
guess what, is going to be like $300. They actually, I did the math before for one of our other podcasts, but it's like average average flight cost in the USA domestic $381. Let's just say it's like $300 for like the average person to go to YCS. Then you like average hotel cost. Average hotel cost. Let's see. Uh, average hotel cost was $148. In 2022 or something like that. It looks like. So, and then we're talking about that's per night, and if you're staying for 3 or 4 days, like that's even more.
Probably split
And so
between people, but still, it's still a couple hundred
yeah.
bucks. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Then you have to spend money on depending on
Food,
where you're
yeah.
at, food. Like
Yeah.
like
but
you're spending
then
so
let's
much
look at
money to go to these things, and then you're going to enter this event for
yes,
5 packs and a
yes, that is
dice,
the and they're not
another
exclusive either.
dice or a dice or a coin. Which
A
again,
field
you're getting
center, right?
these
Yeah.
things that like you either have in surplus already or like have no function in the game, and a lot of these other games are like making it so
Well,
you
okay,
go and you're giving.
I gotta tell you, and I've told you guys this, right? Like, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I got from this One Piece regionals, and it's ridiculous because I think I did high roll on my participation stuff, but I made my flight and accommodation back without trying. Like literally a 4-3 record, a top 64 at and not even a 200-person event.
And this
Participation
this
packs,
gave
event
away
packs.
no cash. Correct.
No cash.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
cash. Participation packs. I got a Dawn pack. The equivalent of this would be like a token pack. I'm gonna translate everything into Yu-Gi-Oh terms at this point. Token pack, right? That essentially, the minimum cost of like these tokens, quote unquote, is about $50.
Oh my god.
So
Sorry.
they're
I
only
need to
available.
interrupt. Imagine if instead of the coins with the chibi art, oh my god, you got a booster pack and it had a token in it. Oh my god. Those would go crazy.
Exactly.
Those
And
would
it's
go
so
so you're saying
crazy.
like a Gore's token with the chibi Gore's
Yes.
art?
Yes, or a
Yeah,
DD
yeah.
Yes,
Crow
a
chibi.
literal
Oh my
token
god,
pack.
those would go crazy.
Token pack, 1 card per pack. You could even put a chase in there. Who cares?
Oh my
Do
god.
whatever you want.
You could
The
be
ship
rare,
doesn't
they
sell,
could
but
be
doesn't
common,
mean
they could be
have to
secret, or they
sell.
could be super. Oh
They
my
also
god.
I don't know if this is what you're getting at. They don't have to be tokens. They could just be
No,
copies
they
of
can be
that
no, but they
card
can be anything. But like
with
for
Well,
that
this
token
example,
no,
right?
I
No,
would.
no,
Well,
but
that's
like,
true
so
too. They could do that.
Let me continue. Let me continue. Right. So,
Can you
so I
imagine
got
how
my, I got
much
my
chibi DD Crow would be
Or
like
or
for
or chibi
$1 billion.
gores.
However,
Chibi
let
gores,
me
yeah.
continue. Let me continue. I want to be the one that talks
Okay,
forever.
go.
Nah, it's me. It's me all the time. I love it. No, so I got my
yeah. We
token
have
pack,
comments that
right?
say, "Oh my god, this Bohdan guy talks so much."
I had a bunch of coffee. You make me do this so early. I mean, it's 1 p.m. Never mind. But no. So token pack, right? The Dawn pack, minimum like $40-$50. I high roll. I get the one that I sell instantly to someone that I'm staying with, and they're just like, I need this for my set. Sure, right? You get your other like offline regional participation pack, and it's like a stamped card. I pull the most expensive one, but then the cheapest one again is in the range of like your entry is coming back solely from participation alone without having to high roll, right? And these are all like you get sleeves. Okay, imagine, and I've said this before, and One Piece did this. They have sleeves. It comes in a pack of 10 for your Dawn deck, which is a set like it's basically your extra deck cosmetically on the game board, right? Imagine you get 15 sleeves and they're branded YCS. That is now for your extra deck if you need to in a small pack. So we know this is possible because Bandai does it. I'm sure Yu-Gi-Oh could just get these printed in packs of 15 and ship them out to YCSs, and they could be pre-reg only exclusive.
Which in
right?
Japan
Like,
they have packs,
They
little
do
packs
have
of
the
10
blind
sleeves.
bags. Yes,
Yeah.
the blind
Yeah.
packs of 10 sleeves. You buy packs, you get that stuff. Yeah,
I have a bunch of
But
those. Those are cool. I
but
bought a
like
bunch.
that's the thing, because you could also, right? These are things that retain value. You know why? Because you're getting 15 sleeves. Maybe you don't want them for your extra deck. Maybe you want them for your main deck.
And,
What do you have to do now?
and then you gotta
You
buy
have
it
to
4
trade.
times. Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, or hear me out. You're entering 4 YCSs, and you feel very good with your return, right? Because you're
Mhm.
getting these sleeves that are now compounding, and you can sleeve your deck with them. You're gonna, play 4 YCSs, you play your WCQ, your whole deck is sleeves. Everyone is like, you either bought these or you played 4 YCSs. Good for you. The coins, what are you gonna do? You can't flip the coins. You can't use them for anything game related. It's a token or a marker. Yeah, that with 50 other things, right? That's my issue. That's participation prize.
Which you also are encouraged not to do that, and in some cases explicitly not allowed to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. So
that is a different point of concern.
yeah.
But then obviously you have your scaling pricing, which is again just exclusive cards. But like we've said countless times, alt art, stamp cards, token pack, extra deck sleeves, little things that will like go on top. I do not want to be the person who is paying their $35 or whatever it is now to get 5 packs of a set that I am not willingly opening normally. I'm paying $35 to enter the YCS. So at least give me something that is either like relevant for gameplay, as Jeff said, right? Like not a field center. I can only use one field center, and half the time I am still using the same one.
You
that
can only use one playmat. You can only use one field center. Yeah, it's like yeah.
The saturation of stuff like playmats, field centers. I think dice was a really good thing. I was very happy when those were introduced. I'm sad they're gone now.
Yeah.
I think dice are a really good thing because they're gameplay related. You can have a brick of, Yu-Gi-Oh! Attribute or whatever dice.
Yeah, but it's something that you use basically like once throughout a game, and that's basically it.
Exactly, right? Like dice you can use for other games. Dice you can, like, what else are you gonna?
Yeah,
I mean?
I use my my chase. So when we did the remote duel invitational, they sent us a set of the regular dice and then one of the chase dice, and I did that twice, so I have 2 of the chase dice, and I use those for other games. Like when I play the My Hero card game, I use my, like the sparkly dice that have they say spell on them or something. Like I use the, and it's like, and it's weird. I use them in an environment where nobody even knows what they are, but that's funnier to me when it's in an environment that nobody knows, what it even means. But it's like, I agree with you in that having something related to gameplay is more relevant, which is why like the coins, I also think the coins were cool. The coins are cool like the first event they're available. Right? But the problem
it wears off, right?
Yeah.
I think the coins are more of a thing that I would be giving to people on Top Cut, not to everyone.
Sure.
You want something that's like, you want to give something to people that has more meaning to a broad amount of people.
I get that.
And like the crystal BLS or whatever, that's a thing you're not gonna fucking use. It's just gonna sit there. So I'd rather give the coins and be more prestigious in Top Cut than just give them out to people who like
how about if you, this is a good one. I think silver coins for entry, gold coins for Top Cut. You get silver coins for entry, and if you Top Cut, you get a blind bag, but it's gold. And that's the other thing.
That's what I think should have happened with the dice as well.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. Which eventually they almost kind of did, because for the invitationals they just gave you a they gave you a chase one, and it's like, yes, I also kind of think like, and again, this is like, we're obviously saying this from a perspective of like, we are people that have topped events and not everybody has, so like obviously they're not going to always agree with this, but like I agree with you in that. I don't think there's a problem
giving away things that are like more accessible to more people that actually matter. So like in general, these coins are so inconsequential. They just get thrown into a bin or a drawer.
They get sold to the vendor. Somebody walks up to the vendor. I worked at one of the vending booths at YCS Richmond, and oh my god, probably 200 people after they registered walked up and said, "How much are you guys buying the coins for?" And we would go, "Well, I mean,
yeah,
we look in the case and we've already bought 50 of them." So.
Anyway, it's about 2024. They need to start giving away some sort of like promotional card, alt art card, doing something, catching up to the rest of the world when it comes to participation.
The rest of the card game
and we've said this before, we've said this at length, and I feel like we're just repeating ourselves every episode now, but it comes on the tail end of like a product where they look very out of touch, right? The thing is, the simple things that are relatively cheap in the grand scheme of things, right? These little booster packs, these little cosmetic things, they are probably cheaper to produce, cheaper to freight, cheaper to keep in circulation of a YCS circuit than the coins, right? So like it's not logical why they would continue. Like the coins are heavy. You now have a big box of heavy coins. You have 50, 3. You know what? It doesn't make sense. Playmats take up a lot of space. They're heavy. You have to ship them. You could just have these participation packs. I've seen the Bandai tiers. They have a $5 of the participation packs. Like, and the cards are still money. I just don't get it,
Yeah.
man.
So I want to go on to this slightly next thing where I want to talk about how all of these things that Yu-Gi-Oh does and the simple things, I believe that they could be simple changes to add. I when it comes to, oh well, how do they fund all this? I want to go over some Yu-Gi-Oh financials over the 2022-2023 uh year. So in 2022, Yu-Gi-Oh drives record year for Konami with profits up 25% to 626 million in 2022. In 2023, Konami's digital entertainment segment, which if you didn't know involves Yu-Gi-Oh, generated the majority of its revenue at about 1.5 billion, and Konami's Q2 2023 earnings also resulted in a 39.5 increase to revenue uh, for the year. Not all of that is going to be Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's going to be a big part of it. And that is just crazy that you can see all this, and over 2022 you see increase of profits, 2023 you see increase of profits, and it's still just kind of the same thing. Like I don't know. It's quite baffling to me that you can see stuff like this, and
This is going to be a
it,
hot take. I truly think the prizing for the premier events is the last thing really holding Yu-Gi-Oh back from just being the definitive
Yes.
#1 card game. Like quite literally, I think if they just got over this last hump and the prizing was just something, if the prizing wasn't something that people made jokes about on Twitter every other week, I truly think Yu-Gi-Oh would just be the best card game definitively in all aspects. And it hurts me when I see it, when I like, as much as we talk about things that they don't do right or think, just I truly think it is the it's the card, it's what we spent most of our lives doing. Most of our lives have been Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think this is the last hurdle, and it's
I don't know
disappointing
if
to
it's
see
like
it
the last thing,
just
but I think it'd be
like,
a huge astronomical
it's just so
step forward.
stagnant. It's not even that, like, oh, the prizing is bad and like there are like tweaks to it and they're like just not good enough. It's just, it literally has
So this
not
is
changed at
also
all.
is what you saying stagnant made me think about this. And also
Mm-hmm.
there are times where I think, what is even the point of going to an event if the format isn't very good? I think that would also make formats that feel really bad playing in feel better traveling to as well. I think that's
Sure.
something that's like
Mm-hmm.
And
probably not
again,
thought of.
to reiterate, I'm not saying we need $50,000 cash prizes. I'm not saying we need that. That's not what we
No,
need.
like
We just
we
need
have
anything cool. We
we
just
have
need
successful
anything cool. Anything. I don't, dude. Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. The Switch, like 120 million people have a Switch. I don't need to like, I just,
still
enough.
giving away Switches
Literally
like
like,
like Max
unironically,
got second at the YCS, and they gave him a Switch, and Max couldn't sell it for like half of
I
what it was called.
it is
People like didn't want to buy it
crazy.
for like half the price of
I
what it
like,
normally is.
and again, this
Remember,
is
we traded our Switches for Starlight Red
We
yeah,
did.
we
Yeah.
did. We did.
When we topped YCS Mexico City in the 3v3, we won Switches, and we just traded them for Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
that
it
is
was
true.
so funny.
We did do that. Okay.
But like that's crazy. If you go to a Konami person and you're like, yeah, I traded my Switch for Starlight Rare Bell, they would just be like, interesting, and it wouldn't process in their mind of like, wait a minute, what if we cut out the middleman and give you
This
another
game is Starlight Rare Bell. No, that's what I said, right? After I did it, I literally said, I'm just gonna pretend the top 4 prize for this YCS was I
Oh
got
my
to finish my playset of Starlight Rare Bell. like that, and just, and that's, here we are. But yeah, it's like, it's I just think it's baffling they gave out a PS5 one event, and then like, what was it, like, it was the 250th, right? That was the most recent one, or no,
They gave out the Steam Decks. I thought that was cool. That was like
yeah, and it's like,
exciting.
why can't you just give out Steam
Decks
Decks?
were really hard to get at the time too. Like,
yeah, but it's like,
nice.
Steam Decks aren't even. I don't even think Steam Decks are like crazy. Like, Steam Decks are like not. Oh, okay. Actually, the thing about the Switches
at the time, I think Steam Decks were very scarce. And
what I am gonna say is, I am gonna say that this I will actually like kind of go in on. I was offended they didn't even give us OLED Switches. That is wild.
Yes.
The OLED Switch, Switch is $50 more and has now been out for so long. It is crazy that they don't even give you OLED Switches.
Do you know what it is? I'm 99% sure is that they just bought the Switches in bulk.
Oh, I mean, they definitely did.
And then they're like, oh, we need to get rid of these.
Yeah, but
so funny story. That is probably the case, because what happens when they have the Australian events is the TO will purchase them and be reimbursed by Konami after the fact.
Because that happened to me at Melbourne. Remember, they didn't have the right one
in Australia and New Zealand, and I have gotten PS4 Pros before they were giving those out too in Australia and New Zealand.
No, because remember,
because you didn't have the option to purchase the base level
anymore. Yeah, you can't find them anymore. Yeah, no, but do you remember that happened at Melbourne?
I do.
Yeah. Where they had the wrong one, and then they fixed it because it was different from the FAQ or something.
They've also done that for me when I've won those in Europe. They've gone on Amazon and just gotten them shipped to me. So I've actually gotten a better PS4 than I have at the event. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I don't know. It is wild that it's also okay. Can I also say what this is also the other thing? The Switch case, I thought, was actually the first time I got, and again, this was the first time I got one because they've been giving them out for so long that we each have probably won like 4 of them because they don't change the pricing ever. The first time I got it, like, I used that Switch case, that YCS Switch case. That is also an example of a product, an exclusive.
Buy a Switch case? God no.
An exclusive thing that I could get from a Yu-Gi-Oh event, and I thought was really cool. I thought the Switch case was a really cool idea. I was super happy they did it when they were still doing the same design 3 years later, and I gave them to all my friends. Like, I have actually probably given away like 4 Switch cases because I just whatever.
So I am going to. I was gonna send a picture, but my Switch case is literally sitting on the floor underneath a table, and it has a bunch of dust on it right now.
No.
I was gonna send a picture of it, but it's literally
Jesse just give me the Switch case.
But however, did you guys know they're not giving those out anymore, and they're still giving out Switches?
Wait, they're not giving the case out anymore?
When Calvin got second at YCS Philly, he did not get a Switch case.
They gave one to Max.
They gave them to us in Mexico City as well, but they're not on the FAQ anymore.
Okay.
They didn't give one.
No, you know what? No, they didn't give one to Max. Never mind.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah. I was gonna say they definitely didn't.
There's not 2 of them because this one's mine that's sitting on the floor, and Max doesn't have his somewhere. He has his bag. It's the bag I was thinking of, the YCS bag.
Yeah.
That's what he has. Yeah.
No, they don't do it anymore, and I don't know if it's like, I imagine it's like obviously it's just like they ran out of them, right? Like, and they just didn't make more, but it's like, I imagine in the back of my head, they are just making new, if they're going to keep making Switch, if they're going to keep having Switches being the prize, they're probably going to keep doing Switch cases. But the Switch cases that they've been giving out for a while, one side says YCS, the other side says whatever the old Switch game was, like something Yu-Gi-Oh, like something dual Link Evolution. And I imagine they would be making new ones that say Master Duel.
It's
right?
Legacy of the Duelist.
Legacy of the Duelist, Link Evolution. I imagine they would just make a new one that says Master Duel. or they're waiting for Nintendo's next system to give out, and they're going to make a case for whatever that is, you know. But like,
imagine they give you a code that gives you Master Duel credits, like it gives you gems.
I wouldn't even hate that.
I think it's criminal they don't do that, and
I wouldn't even hate that.
Hey, you top to YCS, here's some
Dude,
Master Duel gems.
Do you know
Look,
how
it
expensive
costs
gems
nothing.
are?
It's it's not real. It costs you nothing.
Dude, gems are so expensive when they don't have the deals on. You are like,
Yes,
it is
I play a
actually
shit
not
ton of gacha
feasible.
games, and I had to like stop spending money unless they put out deals for gems, and Master Duel's the same way. Unless they have the duels of like the special packs that give you like double gems for half the
Yes.
price, it's just not worth it.
Dude,
Yeah.
why don't they do that? That's the one thing I was like, wait, why didn't I think of that? That's so simple. And surely someone in the office has been like,
okay.
why don't we give out gem codes? Right?
I mentioned so Vince, he qualified for I'm talking about Vincent Pellifiore is the brother of Joey, who just won YCS Richmond actually. Vince went to Duel Links Worlds this year. And I remember over COVID when he was doing like the Duel Links like extravaganza tournaments, I think he top 8'd one of them, and he was like, dude, you will not believe this. The prize, like one of the prizings for like top 8 was like 50 gems. Or like something it was something crazy.
For anything.
It was something. It was some in-game item that they like credited to your account that like literally was not like it was an amount of gems that could not buy a pack. Like it was something wild. and I'm just like, what is happening?
Just quickly on the note of Vince being a proficient Duel Links player, something very funny happened before Worlds. It was Vince versus Sniffers, who is Christian Thomas, who came second at the European Championship, a very consistent German player, came 5th in the Worlds race as well. His brother is Sniffers. So we had 2 TCG players, like obviously Joey, really came into his own at the YCS.
Mm-hmm.
We had Christian, who went to Worlds and came second at Euros, and then we have Vince and Sniffers. Sniffers beat Vince. Vince went to Duel Links Worlds, and Sniffers has been playing Duel Links for like a while. So that's a funny trivia fact that some people don't know. Keep it in the family. One plays Duel Links, one plays TCG.
Yeah, I guess.
Both have success. I love it. It's very fun.
All right. So, okay. Sorry.
I think the last part I want to talk about regarding this, besides the fact that we think there are a lot of changes that are simple enough to make, and we know that they can happen because other games have done it, and other games have done it with less means, and who are have less notoriety than Konami and Yu-Gi-Oh. But I think another thing, again, like we talk about how like they have the Bandai Premium Card Shop and you have the Pokemon Center. Like Pokemon, obviously, biggest franchise in the world, but you don't have to make a Pokemon Center for Yu-Gi-Oh. It doesn't have to be as big and expansive, but it's just don't make $400 cards that look like cards you buy in Etsy.
So I'm gonna play defense on this one. Famous last words.
Yes.
I'm gonna run defense on this one. So they did have that, and it was Yu-Gi-Oh!-shop.com, and it exists. And we talked about this. It existed for a little over 2 years, I believe, maybe even almost 3 years. And I have purchased things from that website. It started off as exclusively an apparel website where you could buy shirts, hoodies, and other, like odds and ends and knickknacks like decals and coffee mugs. And I'm gonna say, when it first came out, we were all super hype. And I remember Nishad and I bought a bunch of stuff, and we combined our order to get free shipping or whatever. And I'm just gonna say all the insane stuff I bought, so people know that I like just okay. Anyways, I bought a Winged Dragon of
Yu-Gi-Oh! Christmas hoodie off there.
Yeah,
it was like
I bought a Winged Dragon of Ra hoodie. When we had to have face masks, I bought a Winged Dragon of Ra face mask. I bought a decal that said Kaiba Corp R&D department, and I put it on one of my deck boxes because I thought it was funny. And then I bought 2 coffee mugs. One of them says like Kaiba Corp, like technologies, like property of or something like that. And just like they just had a bunch of cool stuff, and they would come out with like seasonal items, and they would come out, like seasonal like shirts and other stuff. Like as you mentioned, you got a Christmas one where they came out with a Christmas hoodie. I think the one that says like deck the halls or something, and it's just like a big like Christmas tree with like Yu-Gi-Oh cards on it. I'm pretty sure that one, which people like, I've seen that just like in the wild, like actually, like I've just seen like random people wearing that in the past. I think that originated from there. I think it then went on to be sold in other like random retail chains like Hot Topic and stuff like that. But then they kind of like devolved into like, if you remember all of those, what's that brand called, Bohdan? Fanatics? Is that what that brand is called?
Fanatics,
Like,
yeah. So it's
yeah.
like, I think it's like a European brand. They also make the YCS coins.
Yeah, so it kind of devolved, and like instead of just doing like shirts and hoodies and like stuff that like you can like use, right? Like half of their products was just random coins and like just
metal cards,
but like really, really cheaply made metal cards that
It
were
looked
like
the Pokemon things from the 90s.
from Burger King. They
Whatever.
literally
Yeah.
looked like the Burger King. They literally looked like the Burger King, like kids
Pokemon
meal
metal cards
thing,
Yes.
and they were like $30, or they were just like outrageously priced, and it
Right, so this
just
goes into where we
devolved.
say like it's things that like you just can't use that are just going to sit there.
And it
like-
just devolved into like, here I'm because I bought stuff from them, I would get emails, and
I want to point out that you could have taken that product and instead made a plushie and made it $30, and it would have been probably cheaper to make because it's not metal, and you could make that, and it would have made more money. You would have
Yeah.
sold more.
They had a Pot of Greed collectible tankard. I do believe it was not meant to be drank out of. Like, I'm pretty sure there was
it was significantly worse than the ones that Japan had by like a wide margin.
But
The
basically,
which doesn't make sense, by the way, because you could quite like, obviously it's a different company, but it looks so much worse. It's unfortunate. It's actually alarming.
So they had a couple of plush toys on the Yu-Gi-Oh shop, and Jeff, I'm gonna send you a picture of these.
Yeah.
And
so
these
the thing
look
is,
like they are fake. I'm gonna send you this. These don't look real. But somehow the Karibo looks real, but the other two look extremely bootleg. The blue eyes especially. And I think that's where, like, if you look at the Rescue Rabbit plush that's being given out for prizing, not at events, but at like cons and stuff like that, that is a Rescue Rabbit. It looks like a Rescue Rabbit, right? And it's like, I don't know. So I will say again,
it's also really hard to mess up Karibo. He's literally just
Karibo's, that Karibo looks fine, but I don't. If it was Wing Karibo, I probably would have actually bought one, but I don't like regular Karibo.
And so I talked to Bohdan about this, and what I think is that Konami like went to someone and said, "Hey, we will pay you to make this," and they made the Rescue Rabbit plush.
Yeah.
These are like licensed thing made where someone goes to Konami and is like, "Hey, we'll pay you to let us make Yu-Gi-Oh merchandise," which is the exact opposite. So Konami loses nothing. They're like, "All right, we'll take your money. You make some fucking shit. Go ahead, whatever." And Konami needs to do more. Hey, we will pay you to make us this thing.
Yeah.
And less of we'll take people's money to make crap.
Which I guess the final where this is all going is, to the best of my knowledge, this store was shut down in June, and I would check every once in a while, because I would even until it shut down, every like 3 or 4, maybe I'll just say a month, every like month or so, I would just check and see if they got anything cool, and I would just filter by new arrivals, and it would always just be some nonsense Fanatics metal marshmallow on, and I'm just like, ugh. Like I don't care, just I want a cool new shirt, and there never was one, and I went, oh well. And then it shut down in June, and when it shut down, there was a little message on it that said, like, we're going under like renovations, like we'll be back soon, I just checked before we started recording this, and it just is gone now. Like it doesn't have any like under construction messaging. It literally, I'm gonna it might be shop dash Yu-Gi-Oh. It might not be Yu-Gi-Oh shop. I don't remember. But I tried to go to it, and it was just gone. It just said this like shop no longer exists and whatever. So I don't know if it's coming back. And maybe the failure of so I don't believe anybody at Konami really had much of a hand in that store, in my opinion, based on what it looked like. So I'm not, blaming them for any of its, mismanagement or whatever. But clearly it didn't succeed because it no longer exists, right? And if it succeeded and if it was making a lot of money, then it wouldn't have been shut down, presumably. But I'm afraid that website's failure jeopardizes the future of any more of that kind of stuff happening. Even though I personally think it was the quality of what was being sold that was the problem, not
if you look
the
at all the
quality of the
successful ones,
brand.
you look at here's at the obviously if we go even to not Pokemon, we can look at the Bandai shop. The Bandai shop, you can buy promo cards, you can buy deck boxes, you can buy play mats. These are things that other accessories that people can play with, you can do things with. They have meaning towards the game. They're not going to sit at home at on a desk in a drawer or whatever.
They're also exclusive enough where the value retention is there. So it's something for everyone, whether it be a spec buy, whether it be actual cosmetics or gameplay, or maybe you just collect them, right? It's never flooded in the market. I don't go on those sites and see those products available year round. They're nice. Premium Bandai sticks to its name.
Yeah, and the thing about these things is that they're pre-orders, and the pre-orders sell out also, so they know how much they have to make, or if they have to make something, or if they have to know beforehand they have a certain amount to go out. So I mean it's I guess to just finish it up, I am very disappointed with a lot of that. I feel like it's been a rough couple months for Yu-Gi-Oh, and this does
We are
not.
screaming into the void every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. But I'm sure they know, and I'm sure I have faith in a lot of the employees that do work there, having talked to some of them over time, knowing that they do love the game, they do love the brand, and they hear stuff like this. But there's a lot of bureaucratic red tape, licensing and stuff like that, where it's just
So
out of their reach.
We all have heard that, and we know that, that
Yeah.
things are not as easy as do 1, 2, 3. However, we do know we have other companies that are Japanese-based companies that are able to do these things, and some of them are lesser means and or lesser games than Yu-Gi-Oh. So if they can do it, I know if Yu-Gi-Oh wanted to and Konami wanted to, they would do it at the end of the
Hold
day.
up. As we say this, I just saw the craziest thing, and you guys might scream. And it's another thing that Japan has got that we will likely never get. Guess what is in the claw machines right now?
A Rescue Hour plushie? What? What do
Nope.
you?
Nope.
Oh.
You were going to scream when I send this.
Okay.
This is so awesome.
What do you mean it's in a claw? What do you mean it's in a claw machine? Oh, that's insane. That's insane. Oh my god.
Okay, guys. So when I went to Japan, they had some crazy stuff. You might have seen it on Jesse's vlog. I don't know if it ended up on there, but they have the arcades, the claw machines, the gachas, stuff like that. And they had a Pot of Greed plushie. I must have spent way more than it's worth to win it. Jesse got I think Jesse got a polymerization towel, right?
That's
just a bunch of
funny.
stuff. And the current one now, the Yu-Gi-Oh one, is Moki Moki.
And it's a little Moki pillow.
It's like a pillow.
Looks
it's a pillow.
Pretty
so
awesome. I want to scream. It is beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't really like Moki that much, but this is pretty cute.
Which I will say, I spent so much money on this that I don't even remember what the amount was, but it was way more. The marshmallow one. If you go on my Twitter and you scroll back to one of my first posts, this was a couple years ago when I had just gotten my cats, and it's just 2 kittens curled up on a 4-foot tall marshmallow pillow, So like a life-size to scale marshmallow on pillow that I probably spent 100 times more than I should have to get. I don't even remember how much it was, but it was probably way too much. Because those things, like, the big plushes are expensive. Like, you know, like a big Snorlax plush or a, you know, like a huge Wailord. Like, those are
They're
a
like
lot.
they're like 400 or
Yeah.
more
Which this
dollars.
was not that big, but yeah, it was still like, it was probably a couple $100. So do I regret it? A little bit. However, one of my cats sleeps there almost every night now, so can't put a price
And
on
that's
that.
all that matters.
That is literally all that matters. It's his now. It's not mine. But yeah. So yeah, I know this was a lot. God, every time I feel so bad after an episode like this every time where I'm just like, man, we just complained about so many things, and it's just like, because I just see it's the finish line is so close. You know what I mean? Like I see a better world just over the horizon. I'm just trying to make it happen, and it just doesn't. But okay, so before we end, this will be an abridged one, I guess, because we did talk about it in the beginning. Real quick, I want to talk about potential ban list thing, if only because somebody who listened in the first 2 minutes probably heard us say we'll talk about it. I don't want to not do it. So let's, for just a moment, let's look at real quick the top decks. I don't even want to get into specific cards, just want to get into like which decks we think really like. So we have Unchained, Rescue Ace, I guess Bestial, I guess Runic, sure, Pearly, and then Infernoble and Labyrinth, right? And then maybe we can reach into like Rika or something, but I don't think that one quite needs to be hit. But like, which of these decks, and considering the stuff coming out, oh, and tier, of course, that deck, I'm actually saying I want every tier element card banned, every single one, all of them, even the ones like I don't care, I hate that. I'm so over this tier element deck. I'm just so over it. I'm so tired of seeing these cards. I just, it's more so like Kelbeck. I'm tired of Kelbeck, man. I'm tired of Agito. I want these guys out. I want these guys out of there. That's the only one. That's the only one I'll name specifically. But yeah, so of these, and considering the fire subart coming out of Phantom Nightmare, the only real thing is I don't think it's one. I don't really want them to hit the Sinful Spoils stuff or Snake Eyes stuff. I don't want any preemptive. I don't want any preemptive hits on those. Yeah. One, I don't think they will. Two, I don't want them to. I would like us to get at least one format with all that stuff so we can, you know, see what we can come up with. And that's where I get the most enjoyment, I think, out of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just like when we get a new, you know, like powerful toolbox and we can put it into a bunch of different things. Then it only gets boring when that toolbox is the only thing anybody uses for like 5 months. But when they come out, they're all super cool, you know, and the first couple events are always super interesting. With all this stuff, but what are there any? So I've chosen Tier as the deck I want eviscerated off the face of the earth. Do either of you two feel as strongly about Tier or any other deck that you just want gone?
I mean, the Millers, yeah, like I want the Millers fucking gone. As for deck, I mean, I don't think there's anything I just want gone. I just want slaps on the wrist to like basically everything.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a card I want gone though,
Sure.
and I feel like it's going to be more and more likely, and that's fucking Baron.
Oh yeah.
Literally, still every deck in their mother just plays that card.
Yeah.
Every time, like even the Runic deck, the Runic Bestial deck, that's like the first card they make, like most of the time. It just goes in basically everything. It's too easy to make. It's always just like every ending field is the same, even if you're not ending on some sort of like big board. It's just like, hey,
just whatever plus a Baron. Yeah.
What?
I agree with that completely. Actually, I also, yeah, I don't think I feel as strongly as you, but I definitely, I empathize. I agree. I think Baron. I think in that same vein, kind of like Borlo Savage Dragon. I wouldn't hate if like both those went. I think that is less important than Baron. Way more decks play Baron, obviously, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I think that is a pretty reasonable one, actually. A lot of decks would really have to. Also, just like it's randomly just like a warrior, and it can just fit into the warrior lock that this deck that the Infernoble deck is forced into. I believe some of the cards say that. Maybe I made that up. Who knows?
There's a lot of extra steps for Infernoble if they want to generate a negate that wouldn't be Baron, which I think is like quite interesting. So it makes it less resilient to hand traps, but at the same time, it can just be equally as resilient with stuff like Dolphin, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest one would be Nibiru. But yeah, like I think Baron just like insulates everything. It just I don't think it can exist. But at that point, when are we? I think Baron is the problem, right? Like that's just like I think we can all agree on. Like Baron is generic; it goes into everything, and it's so easy.
I think people might agree with it now, but if we went 2 months ago when on Twitter I said that Baron should be banned and people lost their minds, like literally, I can't wait. I feel confident that card will get banned one day, and when it does, I'm going to reshare that tweet and make fun of everyone who thought that they knew better than me. Excuse me.
So where are we at? Like, do you think it'd be reasonable for like a Baron hit and an Assault hit, or because Assault probably just doesn't need to exist at all?
Assault, I also Assault has outstayed her welcome by about 4 years. I also agree.
It is a Link Vrains card, and traditionally those cards.
Link Vrains card,
and not
even like Celine, like is just like I didn't know that Celine was not once per turn.
Oh,
I had I knew all the other effects. That it was a quick effect. You could use it on your opponent's turn to summon back a monster. Didn't know that you could summon 3 in one turn.
Didn't. Overlooked that one. Yeah.
For
sure.
I think the only other card I think I would be okay to go, and I don't know if other people have talked about this, but I think it's like a actually pretty easy ban. When you think more into it, because also it doesn't really. It's not like an expensive card. It's also not a card
I hope
that
you
makes
say the
the
card
deck
I'm thinking
unplayable.
of. I hope you say the card I'm thinking of because that'll be awesome.
I don't think it's going to be.
Damn it. All right. Well,
it's Labyrinth Coup Clock.
Oh, sure.
Interesting. I was gonna say IP Masquerena, so very different.
Very it is a card that lets you do the things that are unfair with Labyrinth turn 1. So you get rid of that, and then are still able to do the Labyrinth deck without having to like have multiple Labyrinth hits, right?
Yeah, sure. You don't have the turn 1, so you still have the point of interaction on your opponent's turn. It is just a little more awkward without the clock, and probably takes more cards. You don't have the turn 1 FTK where you open like the 2 or 3 card combinations to set up the generic traps, right? Like the Eradicators, the D-Barriers, and the matchups where they're just basically auto wins. I think that's a big one. You have to play more cards like Trap Trick, more cards like Backjack. Maybe go deeper into stuff like Rollback. I could see it happening. I think
with rollback coming out, there has to be a Labyrinth hit. Surely,
here's
right?
the other crazy thing. This is where I think Jeff is really on the money with banning Clock. That new trap card that is essentially just a hand trap when you ditch it with a furniture piece.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know what you're talking about. That's in the
Rumple something. Rumple.
Yeah,
Tuffle,
yeah. That card is actually pretty sick. I like that card.
That card is good. But I think like that's where you would want to be at. That card's generic. Like that card's good going first, and it's good going second when you pair it with the furniture. So I think like giving them more is probably a little more awkward. If you don't hit this deck, I think it probably just edges out to be the best deck leading into the fire format. And we saw that in Japan too. We saw it pick up speed with some. Does it have any hits in Japan? I don't remember.
I don't think so, but I will
Labyrinth?
check.
No, Labyrinth should not. No.
Yeah, I don't think it does. But it's still one of the more played decks, isn't it?
Recently it did kind of well, I think, somewhere, but really it's all about fire right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do know it's all about fire, but for some reason, which granted makes sense because they just have insane fire stuff. Like, yeah, the fire cards are so insane.
I think Lab at that point, like Lab when you have to discard Big Welcome with a furniture piece and summon a lady and use the bounce on your opponent's turn as like a point of interaction. I think that's when Lab is functioning best, right? These are all like engine cards that are doing something, but it's not anything particularly oppressive. And I think that's where like the Labyrinth deck gets really interesting. But when you add in these like FTK style like auto win cards like Food Log, I think the game gets kind of washed. And you know, you have your Arias now too, so it's just I don't think clock
Yeah.
should
And
exist.
I don't, and I'd rather save this for a future podcast and not go. We've already been going on pretty
Yeah.
long. I'd rather not turn the end of this into like a very popular topic people want to talk about. So,
Yeah.
how
How about
can
we-
But yeah, I mean,
probably
like,
we
just in
do-
case we don't have time to do it between Christmas, I guess
Yeah.
just get a couple like more out of the way. I think you guys are pretty much on the money with those hits. I can agree with all of them. I think Yu-Gi-Oh might need to be a little bit gutted. I would like to see more hits, and they'll probably end up giving us.
Can
but
you
that's-
imagine? Can you imagine
all
if
the
we
time.
get a huge ban list leading into the fire metagame, and we just like all the random generic stuff is gone, and we have to like just start from scratch, but have these sick fire cards? Can you imagine?
Mhm.
I can't imagine because we've gotten huge resets before. I don't was
Yeah.
the and because the last December list was a huge reset, right?
No, the last December list was 2 cards.
No,
Oh,
The
wait,
last
uh,
December list was
so-
Curious and Mystic Mine.
Oh,
that,
okay.
that was the one that we were upset about. Where like they're gonna do a big one,
When-
and they did.
when
Like,
was-
they killed Tier.
Yeah. I don't remember when the last big one was actually. The last big one was a while ago. The last big one was a long
So
time ago.
what
I
was the
feel.
card you were thinking that I was thinking?
Oh, IP Masquerena.
Oh.
No, I think
Oh.
IP is fine.
Yeah, that was not the card I was thinking of. Not even close.
I
I just think that's a
I-
card that
I-
like people,
So
if it gets banned, then people would be like,
I don't even like playing
don't
that
know.
card in my deck. A lot
yeah,
of the
no,
time.
I agree with you. I don't think it's particularly like insane. I just think it's a card
I
that
also
combos too well with
think
SP, and like
I
it
think
might just.
IP
yeah.
is a fun one though, because I think IP might have the ban evasion sort of thing attached to it, right? Well, like,
Sure. IP
like-
is like a very marketable card. It has a lot of products that are tied to it as well. Like,
Oh, that's
yeah.
true.
it's similar to the Sky Striker cards, where you wouldn't think that Engage would be at more than one in
Then-
modern Yu-Gi-Oh.
But then they
And
banned
you
it.
would think
Well,
that
you
they
would-
just didn't make 20 more Sky Striker cards, and also Sky Striker gets their
Yeah.
own version of Rhoda, and let's just
They
Anyway.
also banned Engage for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, but that's what I mean. Like you would think, oh, this card deserves to be banned, and it's just like, yeah, here, have it back times a couple. Makes it a little bit more depressing, but
Yeah, but I hope like a lot of these decks just get like a bunch of cards like limited to 1 or something like that, and
I-
just a
I
bunch
would
of
like to
slaps
press
on the wrist.
as I've said before, and I'm sure we've all voiced, like Ryan's playing My Hero. I tried to dabble in other card games as well. Like because
I need.
the
There's a
formats
card
are
I remembered.
so
There's a card I
amazing.
want banned more than anything else.
Okay,
I
go for
forgot.
it. What is it?
Harpy's Featherstorm.
Oh yes. Oh God. Absolutely.
I don't care how played
Yes.
or unplayed Flunderies is.
Oh my
It's-
God. That card is just.
In that vein, I would actually like to see some Flunderies consistency hits. Does that seem reasonable? Like if they
Well,
don't necessarily hit Featherstorm,
I don't
like,
have a
obviously-
problem with that. I have a problem with
Yes.
Featherstorm
I
and
literally-
Dimensional
but
Shifter.
I think my biggest
It was the same thing when Wind
Featherstorm's
Barrier Statue was like I don't have a
I
problem with
agree.
any
I
of
don't
those
think
cards
it
in
should
Wind Barrier Statue, and now it's
I
like
don't think it should
Featherstorm.
exist. However, I think when the format gets into this, like we saw it with Unchained versus like Flunderies, right? I think a lot of the time, yes, Featherstorm is carrying in the other matchups, and it shouldn't exist because it's a turn skip, like it's just stupid. But I do
Dimensional
think
Barrier on crack.
yes, but I think when the format goes into like if you're doing a lot of hits, I think decks like Flunderies can come to the top, and I think they can be unfair into certain other control matchups where I think consistency hits are good. When we have, you have multiple copies of like pots and stuff like that, assuming maybe they don't get hit, you have.
Oh yeah.
all
What if
these-
Prosperity
you
just
have
gets
access
limited?
to everything.
I feel like I might go to 2, but I don't think it'll go to 1 yet. It'll eventually
Hmm.
go to 1 or maybe get banned, but I think I might. It'll go to 2 or stay at 3.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest thing with like scaling like formats, right? When we hit a bunch of cards, like what is going to be the next top deck, and it's like obvious, like Konami's going to do it in a way that makes it most profitable for them with like upcoming releases and everything else. But I think you do get those the stuff people sort of neglect. So maybe they don't they don't perform well enough for a period of time, and they're like, oh, this deck doesn't exist. It's like if you don't hit them inherently, like whether it's like overlap with cards like Baron, like obviously that doesn't really factor into a lot of the format now outside of like the degenerate combo decks, but maybe like, oh, we're hitting Sword, so we're banning Baron, haha, funny. But like stuff like branded Flunderies, they can all be ignorant top tier decks. They all do something that's unfair in some capacity, right? So like I think you can't neglect them when you are building a big ban list. I think Konami's done a good job hitting those silly cards as well, but I think even when they're like control decks, they can be a little bit more overpowered in slower formats.
I guess we'll wait and see. I don't really think Flunderies is on their radar. I don't even know if cards like Harpy's Feather Storm are on their radar.
No, that's what I mean.
But
Like, do you think they would just like ban Albion Sanctifier or something, right? Like, do you think like if the format's like permitting, it's just like, okay, we're just gonna take the really stupid cards everyone's complaining about from each deck, and it's like here, and then like we can fix it if there's like a big disparity in power level,
I really wouldn't
right?
hate that. I really wouldn't hate if they just did a list where they didn't hit any of the actual decks engines at all, and all they did was just hit the random cards that these decks you know what I mean, like the gimmick puppet. Obviously we've discussed it's not just the gimmick puppet, it would probably be Sanctifier Dragon, like Sanctifier Dragon, Feather Storm, even like again Coup Clock would probably be the one for Labyrinth.
that Geomancer card.
Yeah, Geoman. Sure. Yes,
Whatever.
just like all of those
that
cards.
Honestly, that card also probably shouldn't exist. I think that
the
card,
hot red guy or Calamity.
Oh yeah,
guy,
Calamity.
that guy. Yeah, you know what? If
But
they just hit all of those and leave the decks
before,
intact,
they are cards that are used for evil.
Yes.
When have you ever seen Geomancer played in a deck where it's not enabling an FTK essentially?
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous.
Yeah, Bish Balkan, like literally just ban all of the card. Do not hit any decks. Just ban every card used exclusively for evil. and that would be a very funny list, I think.
Yeah, worse things have happened than that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that covers it. This is longer than I thought it would be. Yeah, but thank you all for watching. We covered a lot, actually.
Yes.
I'm gonna do my best for timestamps on this one, but we were so all over the place. I don't even think I'll have...
It's fine. It's been a while. Yeah. We've gotten everything caught up. I think it was concise enough and to the point. We rambled a bit, but it's stuff that we have to keep preaching, and hopefully, it makes it into the hive mind of players, and they vocalize it too. Because it's never for our benefit. Like, I don't get to enter the same amount of YCSs as everyone else. I would still like to see the pricing be better. It might incentivize more people to enter YCSs. It might mean there's more YCSs because there's enough demand for it, right? Like, that's where we're at. I think there is enough demand. That's a lie. If they had more YCSs, it wouldn't saturate the market at all. They should have more events, but I know there's prohibiting costs that go with that. So,
yeah. So I guess last thing before we say goodbye is that obviously this upcoming week is going to be Christmas, so we probably will not have an episode for a week or two. But I just wanted to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone who's been listening, and really thank you guys for your continued involvement with your listening and your comments. We do go ahead and read all of these comments, and we'll post them in our group chat. Like, oh, this one's silly, or like, oh, this guy really has a point. And if we didn't have an audience, we would have no reason to do or like, this guy really hates us. Like, but without you guys, we would not be doing this at all. So again, just thank you, and I appreciate that.
And on that note, thank you all for tuning in for possibly the final JRB podcast of 2023.
Happy holidays, potential Happy New Year if we don't see you before then. Maybe we'll have a band. Let's look forward to a band list. Maybe some set reveals, maybe some new insight into 2024.
Maybe we do get a Christmas Miracle band list, and we panic and make another podcast.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.